Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tooele Happy Hour podcast starring Jared Anderson and David Weiss, where if Head Trauma had a podcast, here's what it would sound like. Jared, what are we going to do today?
Well, Holly's supposed to be coming in, but there's quite a bit of news going on, especially Celeste Malloy won the Republican nomination for that congressional seat, so she'll be the Republican offering to that.
This is like the election that never ends. Doesn't it feel like it?
The special never-ending election. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be. So we got her. What was the Democrat lady's name? Kathleen.
Something.
I just know that her getting in there gives me nightmares. And then, of course, Brad Green. Brad Green has peeled off a substantial amount of the conservative vote.
And rightfully so. I mean, I totally get it. Brad Green is... He was a conservative. He was a Republican.
Yep.
And, sometimes the freedom stick just doesn't get dipped far enough for Republicans like, people like such as myself. And you go off onto the tangents. And he's definitely one of those candidates. And I think he can ring true through both ends of that bell and collect quite a substantial amount of support for a libertarian.
Yeah, he is a part of the Mises Caucus coming out of the Libertarian Party, which the Mises Caucus kicked off about 2 years. I know I've talked about him here before, but kicked off about 2 years ago and really kind of took over the Libertarian Party. At the Libertarian Convention last year, they won every seat. They won every position. And the Libertarian Party had been kind of pandering to the progressive side of the nation for a long time. They had different check marks. You have to do different progressive things to be considered in good standing with them. And that kind of rubbed a lot of libertarians the wrong way, because they wanted a free and big tent party, and the argument was, I don't see why anyone would vote a libertarian when there's all those progressives in the field. So the Mises Caucus just said, look, we're going to be an anti-war, anti-Fed, speech police, all that. That's just what we're going to be. And that's kind of what they wrote themselves out to be. And they were, of course, lambasted as racist by even Reason Magazine did stories about how they were racist and homophobic and awful, just because they were never kicking any race out or any sexualities out. They were just saying, we're not going to pander to anyone. We're not going to disrupt the liberty message for any special groups. And which I think was amazing. And I remember when we went to that libertarian meeting out here, I asked what was the guy, the chair of the Libertarian Party in Utah? I said, so what's your thoughts on the Mises Caucus? And he was, oh no, we don't like the Mises Caucus and all this. And I'm like, you're in the wrong group. The progressive Democrats are over there on the left.
What was not to like about the Mises Caucus? What were some of the points that the other libertarians would make?
Well, they wanted you to declare yourself as anti-racist, and everyone that's anyone had to put out a letter declaring those points. I support LGBTQ in all places, and I'm going to work to, whatever, any progressive message out there.
I couldn't see myself declaring myself anti anything that can't be defined with substantial concrete wording. I feel like the word racist is very rubbery. You can like mold it into different angles and or oblong feelings of whatnot. There's nothing substantial about the word racist anymore. I mean,
oh yeah, it got burned up. Well, it's like on the other side, the word communist is burned up. You know,
well, anyone collecting Social Security is a communist.
Well, they're at least a Ponzi schemist, but no, it's the right wing called everybody called everyone communist, and that didn't. It took the bite out of that word, and I think it did a lot of damage on that side. So it's both sides. It's just like another one from the left was they would call everyone fascist. It is so much so that I'll bet the guy who ran the fascist page on Wikipedia burned his fingertips off redefining the word every week and a half. Because fascism it was a declared political movement, you know.
Okay, sure. I mean,
but now fascist just meant, oh, you're not a socialist, you're not a progressive, then you're a fascist.
It's basically authoritarian, isn't it?
Fascism is when you're allowed private property, but everyone works for the whole of the nation state.
That sounds like socialism, sort of.
It comes from the fasci. You know what a fasci is?
Sounds Italian.
Yeah, it's Italian. I mean, it was Mussolini that invented this political movement.
So it's not a form of pasta.
No. You've seen it on your dimes. It's where they've got a bundle of sticks, but one of the sticks in there is an axe. And that's declaring that together we're stronger.
Gotcha. Well, it doesn't sound so bad if you were, I don't know, maybe like an insect hive or something.
I mean, unless, of course, you wanted to run your business in you wanted a free market business, wanted to try something weird and new, and the government said, nah, we don't like that, then it's awful.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know. Can someone be a racist if they judge you by height? Like maybe I'm too short to date for the captain of the cheerleading team. Can I call her a racist?
Well, that wouldn't be racist because height is not a racial thing, but that would be heightist or staturist, whatever. But I believe you should be able to, right or wrong, live your life however you want and deal with the fallout from those choices in your life. So if you choose to not bake a cake and the community around you shuns you for that, well, then you're out of business, problem solved. You see what I'm saying?
And then, so where were we?
Okay, so, and then Colorado Springs, you see the deal with the kid wearing the Gadsden flag?
Yeah, the memes were hilarious.
The teachers, honestly, I think we've lost. How does a teacher not know at least the basics of where that came from?
And that's why we shouldn't have so many female teachers. We really should eliminate a lot of the female teachers and replace them with men. That way it's 50-50 on the battlefield.
So you had a good flight with your wife? Is that what you're saying right now?
You know, I bet you my wife would agree with me on that one. There's something to be said about male teachers nowadays. They're a rarity.
Well, they are, and
I think they're important.
Well, that comes from a couple different areas. One, men tend to look for jobs that are scalable, and women tend to look for jobs that are interactions between people. And the problem right now is jobs that have interactions between people commonly don't pay a lot. There are some, lawyers, that's a high paying on average job. doctors, once you actually become a doctor, but the highest level of doctors are surgeons, and they generally don't do a lot of face-to-face time. Mm-hmm. They do a little bit of, hey, meet with the patient, and then go in, knock them out, and cut them up.
Count to 10 backwards.
Yeah. Where women, they get a lot of value from the interaction with other people. So I don't know how we change that. I definitely don't want to go to a system where all pay is mandatory to be equal, because eventually someone's going to be cleaning a shithole at gunpoint. That's where that ends up. Mm-hmm. Because everyone else will just say, I want to go be the artist, I want to be the movie star.
I want to work on YouTube.
Yeah. And the other guys, someone is going to have to clean the shithole. Right now, where you have the supply and demand market, most people that go into, say, pumping septic tanks as a small business do that because there's an opening in the market, and because of that opening, you get to set your price.
And I think that's actually a pretty decent business too, if the numbers don't lie to me. I've heard you can make some good money pumping shit.
Oh, it's huge. It's a huge business.
Brad Green, I think he's got a pretty good substantial ground to fortify his campaign with against Celeste. We also have January Walker. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, I haven't seen much from her. I think now that the primaries are over, she's probably planning to focus more on that. And then
she needs to pick it up, though. Maybe she's just been saving her money because there's been a huge bright spot of material coming out from Celeste. Hasn't put a lot out, but I know Bruce had a lot of commercials, mm-hmm. and Becky had a lot of commercials, and maybe she just thought, and maybe that drove the prices up, or she just thought that would dilute it. So maybe now she'll put stuff out, and but right now the Republican Party is going to start pouring money into Celeste. Where before Celeste didn't have a lot of money thrown into advertising. I think now you're going to see all that focus go in there.
Right.
The question is, so you've got Forward Party, Democrat Party, Libertarian Party, Republican Party.
Oh, no kidding. We do have a Forward Party, don't we?
Isn't that who?
That is not January Walker.
Oh, who's party. January running on?
She is like some Utah type party.
Yeah, but I think they're part of the Forward Party.
Are they?
I thought so, because that's who she kind of campaigned with last year.
Well, they had a lot in common back then. I will have to look at the names on the lists. There's still quite a substantial amount of candidates in different places here that can definitely make it an interesting race. I mean, it is Utah. It usually just goes red. People push the red button and call it a night. Unlike being a delegate voter, they only have to press one button and vote once. But, that's cool. Good for them.
Yeah.
Their wives won't get angry about them staying out all night having to revote.
Let me ask you a question. So all of the polls that were coming out was saying Becky was way ahead. What is up with that?
That is because those people are probably sponsored by some entity to say things like that, I would imagine.
Or do you think they're just polling like Salt Lake Valley?
And the only people probably able to poll are people without jobs or something, or, those kind of people. So working folk, they don't poll too often. Like, you get those phone calls on your phone during your lunch hour, and they're like, I want you to take a survey. Yeah. I'm like, I got 30 minutes to consume what beverages and protein I can for the rest of the workday. Leave me the F alone, please.
Yeah, it does make you wonder what what the parameters of the polls was. Now, I never got to look into them to see how many people were polled, locations, was it a diverse location, whatever. But they had Becky up as high in a 3-person race up into the high 40s, which is a dominant, you know. And then it comes out and she didn't get anywhere near that. So what was up with that? And I don't want to disparage the pollsters, but you would think in an area like the 2nd District, where it stretches from the top of Utah to the bottom of Utah on the western half of the state, that they would take into account that most of their area is rural. How do they poll that? Did they poll that? Did they dig into, I mean, obviously Tooele. Did they dig into Delta? Did they dig into, Beaver and all of that?
And then who sponsored the poll? I think that has a huge impact on how the poll is run, is who's paying for it.
Do you think that they, honest opinion, do you think that they shaded the poll to hopefully get their person in? I would hate to think that they would do that, though. But,
I mean, it's like, I don't know. Why not? I mean, if you have a desire to put a candidate in, you're going to do whatever you can to put that candidate in. And for some reason, people were actually considering Becky Edwards as a viable Republican, and it weirds me out to think that way, because she didn't show up for any debates. She didn't really participate in anything Republican. She votes for Biden, and she's probably friends with Mitt Romney. She probably goes over there for dinner on occasion. Who knows? But again, all the Mormons voted for Mitt Romney when he jumped in at that Senate seat, and I told them so, just so everyone knows I was always against Mitt Romney on that Senate seat. So I remember some of the appalled faces I used to get when I said he's not the one. Yeah. But anyway, Becky Edwards, she has money. I don't know where she got all that money from in her lifetime, and she used it pretty effectively. She did get a large amount of the vote. If Bruce wasn't there to siphon off some votes from Celeste, I don't even think it would have been a competition. But
I do think Bruce and Celeste only competed against each other.
It was a perfect storm. It really was.
I think Utah is very loyal to the Republican Party. I have family members that voted for Bruce because they feel like he had the message that they have.
All he really did was attack Celeste, to be honest with you. And I can't really say any of them really had any fantastic, groundbreaking, freedom-granting ideas to put forth as products to the peasant. But I just, in the end, I voted for Celeste. I won't lie. I like Bruce, but man, when he gave me that one answer about guns on drones, I started wondering if Celeste was more Second Amendment orientated.
Guns on drones. It's Dave's benchmark for you future politicians, is Dave wants guns on drones.
Dave wants a lot of things. I'd love to have my own freaking chemical weapon collection if I could actually keep it self-contained in my chemistry ventilation hoods or something, but I don't dare go there.
Where would you keep it? Let's I want Holly to get here before we get into the January 6th sentencing, because obviously we've got to talk about that. That'll be the bulk of the show. But if you were to be full Second Amendment about chemical weapons, what would you have any requirements on storage, or what would you do?
Absolutely. I would go with the ANSI standards for ventilation and all those sort of.
What are the ANSI standards? Let's say a guy's.
Oh, you want me to read volumes of ANSI standards?
I just want you to say, let's say a guy's going for ricin. That's something you can make in your own home. I don't need to explain to anyone here how to make ricin in your home.
That is a biological weapon, not a chemical weapon.
Well, yeah, but it falls under the same umbrella.
Right. And I'm not NBC. Racist against biological weapons.
But it's something you can easily make in your own home.
It is.
It's probably the easiest bad thing to make.
It's also very dangerous to make, too.
Well, they all are. But then again, so is methamphetamine. But if someone was to go down that road, right? Mm-hmm. What are the requirements for them? Can they even make it and keep it in their residential area home? Is there like a certain perimeter they have to have?
Yeah, I mean, everything is about keeping sterile containments and proper ventilation and changing out your ventilation hoods, having backup systems if something goes wrong. I mean, the government does it. So my opinion is if the government can play with it, I think so shouldn't civilians. Because one day you might find yourself being put into a shower by someone on a cattle car or something like that. And you want to be able to fight back with everything you can. And if you think that sounds crazy, Jared.
No, it doesn't. That part doesn't sound crazy, but I don't know if I would want to use chemical weapons as my deterrent. At least not. I don't know. Just seems to me like I'd be playing with something. You know, let me tell a funny story. It's going back to World War I, and I'm shooting off the hip here, top of my head, a story I read 20 years ago or whatever. The first time the Germans used chlorine in the trenches, they had it all planned out.
The wind blew backwards.
They used it on the Canadians, right? Mm. And it did. It flowed into the trenches and it bit a lot of Canadians. And I think it was somewhere like 40 minutes into it, the wind changed and blew it right back at the Germans, and it bit all the Germans who released it. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm thinking, you know, that's like if I had a shotgun and I had to stand somewhere downrange of that shotgun to pull the trigger and hope that the pellets all slid past me to get the bad guy, you know? Yeah, I'm enough off the side that it shouldn't hit me, but you know what I'm saying? And that's why I don't like weapons like that. Another reason why I wouldn't want to put a weapon on a drone, because there's a greater possibility that I'm handing that piece of equipment over to someone to use it against me than if it's in my own hand. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, the possibilities are there, but you know what? When it comes to protecting my freedom, I just don't like to take any options off the table.
All right. And no, and I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just wondering, what would the rules be if someone was going to, you know, cook up some VX gas in their spare bedroom?
You got to do it safely, and you have to contain it. You can't allow it to slip out.
And then what happens if it slips out?
Then you're a criminal.
Okay.
What happens if your gun goes off accidentally when you're taking it out to show a friend and you shoot your friend?
Yeah.
What are you? You're a criminal.
If you flagged your friend with that muzzle, even if there's no bullets in it, then you're a butthole. But, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, you're talking about a really, really dark future. One of those like George Orwellian societies. So don't expect to live through the revolution if you if that's where you find yourself on the timeline. I was just listening to Dan Carlin's Hardcore History about the Japanese armies and how they would just, even when they're surrendering, they've got a grenade behind their back and they put it up against their freaking head to blow off the people that are coming to help them surrender.
Yeah,
they're absolutely fanatical.
Well, they were a huge honor-based society. Honor-based societies do that all the time, you know.
Well, there's not many honor-based societies that we can look at in history that are even equivalent to what the Japanese were.
Well, you could argue a lot of the how do I put this? Islamic societies are heavily honor based.
Yeah, but they would surrender. They would surrender.
Sure, some of them.
But the Japanese,
they also make special vests and go to places,
well, they're told a few fairy tales in between the training. And
most of the time, they're drugged up. Most of the time,
probably, yeah.
Most of the time, yes. But that's that. Honor-based societies do that. We're more of a guilt-based society, so that's not a part of us. A part of us is, being quick to declare and accept guilt, I would hope. Oh, yeah. Well, Holly's not here, and I don't know how much longer we can wait.
You can't wait at all.
Yeah, but let's talk about all the store closures real quick.
What store closures?
Well, okay, San Francisco's losing all of its Targets. Chicago's losing its Walmarts.
Oh, that didn't happen already?
It's been happening, but yeah, what's going on there?
I'll tell you what.
As I'm here just buying time.
I just got back from Michigan this weekend. And I'm thinking I'm going to see like red communist flags everywhere. No. As soon as you get out of the airport, you go upstate. It was a very patriotical society, and gas was like $3.40.
Really?
Yeah, it seemed almost like maybe.
Do you think that was
I've
a
been lied
tax
to
thing?
all my life.
Do you think Michigan is pretty much just destroyed around that Detroit area? Other than that, Michigan's a wonderful state. The downside is that Detroit area speaks for all of them.
Right.
Like Whitmer deciding that during COVID, when you can't go to the mom and pop stores, Walmart's good, and she's going to put sick people in old folks' homes, and she's going to make it so it's illegal for you to buy gardening seeds.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It is. And I'm sorry, Michigan, you guys got to kick Detroit people out, or at least get them to quit voting in dog shit, because Whitmer is dog shit.
Yeah, and I guess there are a lot of like upstate rabble rousers that want to form their own different state. It's very patriarchal upstate.
Oh, really? They want to form their different state, huh?
That's what I heard.
Like they're up on the peninsula.
But the thing is, and in upstate New York, it's the same thing. They say we can't get by without that money from the city, which translates to I'm too freaking lazy to build my own state, if I may say so. At least that's what I always told everyone in New York. It's like, oh, why don't you want to even try to separate the scum from the productive upstate New York citizen? And the answer I always get is, oh, well, if we don't get that city money, we can't plow the roads. I'm like, really? You're sacrificing your freedom for maybe a little extra elbow grease you have to put into that?
We hear the same thing here about Salt Lake. Cox is extremely popular.
Yeah, not from my circle. I don't know. I don't see it from that circle. They don't talk to me, maybe. I don't know. I can't understand how Romney and Cox would even have a feasible opportunity to represent us. But yeah, you're right. They do. They get in. How? I don't know.
Here's the sad thing. Romney and Cox are in there. Well, Romney got in by signature, and that he won off that collecting signature is shocking. Cox was kind of the party guy. I mean, he was a lieutenant governor. The Republican Party loved him, and so the party kind of run him in. I hope Celeste isn't the same way, where, say one thing, do another, party backs him. Because that's how Cox has been.
Now, Celeste is going to have to find her feet once she gets in, if she gets in. And,
Do you think she can make a change? Do you think a congressperson... Okay. Do you think, say we got a group of 20 congress people, do you think they could make a distinct change on the ground?
There's 400 and something votes in Congress, right? Mm-hmm. Can 20 people make a big difference? I don't know. I don't know, Jared. I'll be honest. And there's a lot of differences to be made. I mean, first and foremost, we can't even get sugar in our freaking ketchup, and we got corn syrup, and the Republicans back that. And that's all communist. That's liquid communism.
Yeah, that's your farm bill writ large right there.
Yeah, so do I have a lot of hope for our society? No, I'm more or less, I wake up every morning and I ask myself, did the revolution happen yet? And then, like I just told you, like what's going to happen after it does, if they do? Because otherwise you're just going to get the status quo. It's going to get worse. And people that don't own real estate now, they'll never own real estate because, I mean, you can't buy a house for $1 million if it's a starter home and your minimum wage is $15, and that's not even the minimum wage yet, is it? It's still 7 something, I think. So really,
you got to take out loans where you have to tell your kid that you're going to have to name their firstborn this because their name's on the loan.
I really don't see any future for this country if we continue to allow it to do what it's doing in the present. There has to be a major upset. There has to be an upheaval. And I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be very ugly if there's not something to replace it in position after it's done. Because then you just get another freaking dictatorship, another China, another Russia, or something like that. So, and then you're asking Americans to be able to come together and build something like that in today's society, when I'd say the IQ of the average citizen is lesser in the modern world than it was in the, what do you call it, the old days.
Could be. Or maybe it's just diluted more.
What do you mean by diluted?
I don't know.
No, I think you do.
Well, boy, this is going to go over well. Universal suffrage, maybe. But if you're going to tax everyone, I think everyone should vote.
Right.
I think as long as they're taxed, they should vote. Okay. I would like to see it that I can say, I can give up my taxation. I can, not be taxed, and I'd give up my vote.
Ooh, that sounds sexy. I like it.
Think about it.
I mean, right now, do you pay more in taxes than you get back?
Oh, shit. That's an easy answer.
Like there's welfare mamas out there that get a lot of those CHIP and HUD and all that other stuff, and in the end it probably works out to their advantage, right?
Probably, yeah.
But they get to vote. I mean somehow there should be a way to there should be some sort of a badge of honor if you are paying more into the system than taking out.
Yeah. What if they gave it so that your vote carried the same weight as you put into the common pot? So we give everyone the vote, right? Mm-hmm. And if you are a net draw from the common pot, your vote just counts as 1. But if you're on the plus side of the common draw, your vote keeps climbing higher and higher. Maybe that'd be a way that the system would regulate itself, because people would vote in, okay, we need to add more services and more care, and then their taxes go up. Now, oh God, we got to back it up, and then it'd back it up, and it'd have a chance. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I know the newest country on the planet is operating their government in a way where the more money you stake into the republic, the more voting power you have. And that would be the recently opened up borders of the Free Republic of Liberland. They are actually having a system in place where they use their money as a staking power for the vote for the average citizen. So if the government passes something they don't like, they can somehow stake their currency on in a position where they can kind of counter it or something like that as an average citizen.
Be interesting to look into. Yeah, hopefully it's scalable. Hopefully Or maybe it's scalable, where you can do it across, say, 1 million citizens. But your wife has a few comments. I'll read them out to you. Pretend I'm her.
Yes, dear.
Yes, David Weiss, because people on today days are very safe.
She's being sarcastic.
Oh,
I can hear the sarcasm.
now she's talking about Michigan, beautiful and clean, American and Trump flags everywhere. Yeah, and and that's anywhere. I mean, when I drove through California, it's Trump flags everywhere. Of course, I went through the northern part. Mm-hmm. Everywhere. Didn't go to any big cities. It's seriously, the Democrats almost 100% own your urban jungle, and the Republicans have all the rural farm, and your split section are suburbia.
Now, when the Democrats, when they go out to harvest votes, do you think that they do target the black community and other minority communities specifically?
I'm sure, but I'm sure they just hit every building. I'm sure they hit every district, which is something you can do. That's where they have an advantage, where your neighbor is 15 steps away, front door to front door. And
the Republicans have a lot of distance to cover.
And the
get
Republicans,
from door to door.
So the Republicans, I think, need to figure out a technological defeat for that if they want to be competitive going forward. Because right now, as it stands, up until the 2020 election, we were clocking in somewhere like 30 to 40% of the voting population even voted, right?
I think it's still about that, isn't it?
No, when we hit the 2020, it was huge. It was huge. Those two guys combined got more than, got more than their predecessor. So Biden got a vast amount more than Obama got. Trump got a vast amount more. Yes, population's gone up, but it hasn't
Not
doubled in 8 years,
Do you think?
And I think it was a couple things. One, the universal mail-in where it went on. Mm-hmm. I think COVID had people locked in their houses. Nobody went to polls, so they made voting easier. Voting was right at your fingertips. It's right there. And I think the Democrats had their big win because the Democrats, to get a district, if they got 50 people to go to different buildings, mm-hmm. they just probably doubled the voting population right there.
Do you think that people who can't get to the polling station on an election day are lower IQ than the people who can? Do you think there's an intelligence
what do you mean
between those two groups?
I don't know if there's an intelligence difference. Maybe motivation. Mm-hmm. That's where I'd put it at. Are they motivated? Is it something they're passionate about? But if it's mailed to your house and then they send some pretty college girl to your front door who's like, hey, have you voted yet? No. Well, I see it right over there on your counter. How about you vote that? I'll tell you what, in states that I can, I will carry that down and put it in the mailbox for you on my way down. Or if in a state I can't, like here in Utah, supposedly they're not supposed to be able to, right? I think that's right. I think you have to drop it off yourself at the voting station. You got to at the ballot box. Okay. Mm-hmm. But here's what you do. They plan it out for you. They get, it's super easy. Republicans could do the same thing. They just couldn't hit as many people.
It's really is. It's a science. I wish we knew more about ourselves, to be honest with you. I still have a hard time believing that many Americans would vote for Biden.
I don't think they voted for Biden.
So you're thinking, oh, we're going to vote against Trump.
They voted against Trump. I don't think anyone gave a dirt about Biden winning or not. They just gave a dirt about Trump not winning. The people who voted against him.
That could be true.
I guarantee it's true. Biden's the president right now, and if he showed up to do a rally, a popcorn vendor would be leaving with a full carriage of popcorn. Just serious.
So from that perspective, do you think it's a bad idea to give Trump the Republican nominee in terms of the Republicans?
I don't think so. Biden's done a couple of things that's really hurt him. He made all the promises, progressives made. And word on the street is that Trump has garnered like 45% of the black male vote, which will take the blacks out of the Democrat castle, and they'll be on the field for play.
Yeah, but the blacks have always voted like Democrat as long as I've been alive. In terms of like,
but we're young.
Like 75%, is it right? Something like that.
Yeah, but the argument is from the Democrats that if they lose the black vote, they'll never win another national election.
Now, just keep in mind, though, I mean, like the black community, they're only 14% of the population.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, statistically speaking, it's probably the upper class white females that they target as their organization
I promise
base.
you, upper class white females are smaller than 14% of the population.
You think so?
I guarantee it.
Well, maybe my definition of upper class is different than yours, but
Well, what do you consider upper class?
it's a good question.
Above middle class? Just somewhere in that $200,000 a year and up range.
Yeah, but you also have to think, though, if you're an upper class female, you have the influence of like you have like a magical ability to influence lower class females.
No, you don't.
Yeah, it's like the powerful vampires and the lower vampires. The powerful ones control the lower ones. They do. I'm telling you, women structure themselves in a way where they seek
Women are not
validation
meritocratic. Males are meritocratic.
I didn't say meritocratic. It's a social organization where you seek validation from each other so that you can help each other out. Like you were stating before, they're very social. Whereas men, we are more meritocratic. We want to go out and pound on rocks and make things.
Men naturally find a leader whenever they get into a group. Naturally. It just happens naturally. Women do not. They can't fight. They it's in their physics. It's just what they do.
I disagree with that, but
okay.
I'm thinking influence is really a big deal in female society, and upper class women influence the lower class women, and especially when they want to send out a message, when they want to show off a pocketbook to make other women want that pocketbook or value that pocketbook, or that's why certain brands are given to the more influential women for free so that they can show off in front of the lesser influential women, and then those women buy the product. That doesn't quite work with men, though, does it? Does it? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Cars seem to be a big driver.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'm just old now. I don't know. But that's the way I was thinking about it.
I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, if you count all white women, that's a big chunk. But the black vote has been securely in the Democrat Party since the 60s, 62, I believe, with the Great Society. The blacks first split over the vote in the 40s over the Farm Bill, or the late 30s over the Farm Bill. And then the 60s secured it. But if they just lose the male vote of that population, that'll cause big damage to the Democrat Party. And the Democrats are worried about that right now.
Mm-hmm. Rightfully so. I mean, they deserve to be worried about it.
And then you got Trump being indicted, and they put up that mugshot of him, and everybody, it was everywhere, and people were selling T-shirts and all this stuff. It's insane. And I don't know if this is true or not. Will it have to remain to be seen? But the reporting on that was that humanized him to the black male population even more.
Oh, okay. That sort of kind of makes sense to me. Because
they've commonly been pretty roughly treated by our justice system. Mm-hmm. And only an up-and-up moron would say that all these indictments are on Trump is justified.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to give him some sort of pressure, because look at what's happening to Joe Biden's son. I mean, they're so hard on him. They have to equalize that a little bit, right?
You're right. Justice is blind. Did you hear Colorado's trying to remove Trump from the ballot there? And if they do, it's over. I don't think Trump could make it across the finish line without
Colorado.
Without maintaining those purplish states being on the ballot there. Was that Holly?
That was Holly.
All right. She's coming in?
On her way.
All right.
No. All right. So speaking of states, you had a pretty cool idea.
Okay.
All right. I want to share that with the audience.
Share away.
Now, we were talking about the 10th Amendment. Mm-hmm. And then I went off on a tangent and said, hey, if a state does not have the bank account to bankroll itself and has to mooch off of all the other states through federal funds, their electoral college votes should not count for the next round. Mm-hmm. Until they can correct themselves. Mm-hmm. And then you came up with another idea. What was that idea, Jared?
Which one?
I said it was a good idea. Now I can't remember it exactly.
Well, I had the one that said that if you're a net drain on the tax system, you don't get as many votes.
Right.
I think that one, we need to do away with the popular vote. That is where senators are voted by the populace. Mm-hmm. I think senators are supposed to be your aristocrats, which is how you can look at it, and they should be elected by the state representatives. Here's another idea. Why aren't our federal politicians paid by the state instead of by the feds? Right now, we send someone to Congress, they're paid on a congressional paycheck by the feds. I think it'd be nice if the state decided how much they were paid. So if they were doing great for the state and great for the people they represent, they might get more pay, mm-hmm. And if they were doing awful, they might get less. And if the state was doing bad, that would reflect on their paycheck. We've got to make it so our politicians are held accountable by the laws they write and legislate over.
I remember back when we had 3 county councilmen, commissioners. Mm-hmm. I remember I said that. I said our pay for the commissioners, because it was a big deal. We were looking at the pay, and
when they got their pay raise,
they were very well off after that.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, your pay should have to go through an algorithm based upon how well the county citizen fares.
Just 5% above your district median.
Yeah, and
Just call it that.
I remember some silver-haired older lady screamed out, "That idea smells of spilt milk." and you know how that made me feel, like standing up in front of everyone in Tooele County at the county meeting, some old lady just badgering me and my fantastic idea.
It should be simple, and the state should be able to decide if that's how it wants to do it. But why aren't our federal representatives paid by the state?
Yeah, I like it. Sounds good to me.
That's a simple cut and dry. They should be paid by the state, and it should be their raises are not voted on by them, but voted on. So let's say our congressperson, their raises voted on by our state reps, and our senator, our federal senator, his raise is voted on by our state senators. And then I think our state rep and senators, their raises should be voted on by, say, a meeting of the county commissioners. And that the vote should go up. Have they done a good job representing your needs? And we're just taking a group of people that we can isolate and have them vote.
Yeah. And I'd love to see that trickle down to somehow giving the delegates a little more of the power other than just voting for the.
Well, the problem with the delegates is the delegates represent a party.
Right.
Whereas when they actually get in there, they're supposed to be representing everyone. So let's say you're a delegate for the Democrat Party in Tooele County. Are you going to be voting for the Republican? That'd just become a vengeance vote at every turn. You see what I'm saying? Delegates aren't technically a part of our governing system.
No, but wouldn't it be nice to have something where some more interactivity with the regular citizen could have a bigger play in the politics of the state?
Sure.
Other than just making phone calls and letters and emails that pretty much go to nowhere. I mean, I don't know. That's sometimes the way I feel when I try to make a complaint to you know what? Try making a complaint to Mitt Romney's office. I mean, you just get like an answering device.
Really?
Yeah, it's nearly impossible. But we elected him, so I guess we gotta. Yeah. We get the government we deserve.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So what else is going on? Jimmy Buffett passed away.
Yeah, Jimmy Buffett passed away. He's now having cheeseburgers in paradise.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. We're just going to have to dive into this because I've got a little article pulled up. So January 6th, I've had a lot of sentences come down. Of course, they arrested over 400 people.
Are you sharing this with the audience?
Not yet. They arrested over 400 people on January 6th. And so they've had a lot of sentences. They've had a lot of sentences completed and done. They've even had a couple that were thrown out. Okay. But they had 3 real big sentences that just came out. Sorry if I'm going slow because I'm pulling stuff up. 3 real big sentences that came out just the other day. And so I'm going to, go ahead and adjust the screen and crop out a little bit of the crap so that not everyone has to enjoy it with me. And remember, I am not a professional, which is why this wasn't done ahead of time. So, sorry, more adjustments need to be made. So this is coming from Politico.
So just to set the stage, some of these sentences were people that weren't even at the January 6th celebration, right?
Okay. We're going to cover Enrique Tarrio first. He is the head of the Proud Boys.
Now, he is not a white guy, correct?
No, if I remember, he's Cuban by nationality, or most of him is Cuban. I don't know how you work it. So Enrique Tarrio was, he went to, before January 6th, I think this was late in 2019. Or in 2020, late in 2020, he went to D.C., tore a Black Lives flag down off of a church and lit it on fire.
Which is property destruction.
Property damage. I completely agree with them arresting him for that. When he flew into D.C. on January 5th, they arrested him for that flag burning circumstance. And so he is being held on January 6th. He wasn't there. Or actually, I think it was a couple weeks before. He wasn't there. He was told he couldn't be in Washington, D.C. He was kind of kicked out of the city. Well, he got tried. He got put on trial. And he got sentenced to 22 years last Tuesday.
But he said stuff on Facebook that was not agreeable, right?
He sent supportive text messages to members of the Proud Boys who were there. So I guess he got pulled into the RICO thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe tried as the, you know what RICO is, it's organized crime laws, racketeering and organized crime.
Right.
I guess they're counting him as like if he was kingpin of the drug dealing cartel or whatever, because RICO was about drug dealing.
Right.
That's what it was brought around for. But he got 22 years for sending messages.
Well, at least he didn't get shot like the guy in Utah.
Yeah, that one I'd like to dig in more. I would really, when we went to that Meet Celeste meeting in Stansbury Park, Sheriff Wimmer got up and talked about it. And obviously he can't say a lot. So in the vacuum that is left by his political position, not allowing him to say a lot, I will speak for him that had the FBI gotten a hold of their local sheriff, I'm sure that old man in Provo would still be alive. Because that guy doesn't like the FBI, but I don't think he ever talked bad about the local sheriff down there. And we do know that the Utah County Sheriff's a pretty good constitutional sheriff. And the FBI didn't even tell the sheriff that they were coming in. They came in and did a raid. That should be completely illegal for federal officers to come into your county and do a raid without notifying you. You should at least get notified. The sheriff, But who am I to say? Remember, the feds have taken over everything. They've sucked all the oxygen out of the room. It's completely constitutional, completely above board. It's written in there on page, 7,000 or something. So anyways, so he got 22 years. Tarrio, former chair of the Proud Boys, was sentenced 22 years in prison Tuesday for masterminding a seditious conspiracy aimed at keeping then President Donald Trump in power. He has been jailed since his arrest in February of 2022. He has been in jail for a year and a half before his trial. The prosecutors wanted to sentence him to 33 years. He wasn't present in the Capitol on January 6th because he had been ordered to stay away from Washington after being arrested and charged with setting fire to a Black Lives Matter banner. However, prosecutors say Tarrio continued to rally his men from afar, urging them to remain in the Capitol. Stuart Rhodes. My first experience with Stuart Rhodes was in about 2012. I remember this thing popped up. It was right after Obama got in, or second term, right after he won his second term. There was this emailer that went around and a couple things, and it said, Oath Keepers, are you a veteran? Did you swear to uphold the Constitution? When you take that oath, it never dies. Sign up here and humana.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I always thought of the Oath Keepers as like a mild form of like just veterans that want to remain faithful to the Republic. And I never really thought of them as far right. In fact, I always thought they were kind of soft. I mean, like they wanted to be hard, but they couldn't. You know what I mean? And that's always the way I kind of looked at the Oath Keepers.
Yeah, one way or another. Well, Stuart Rhodes, the leader of the far-right Oath Keepers, was sentenced to 18 years in prison for seditious conspiracy. Prosecutors say Rhodes planned a weeks-long effort to derail the transfer of power from Trump to Joe Biden, leading to the organization of dozens of allies to descend on Washington on January 6th. Rhodes was convicted in November.
Now, I don't think that's possible, because if you're going to take an institution like the government on, wouldn't you bring weapons and stuff? None of them had, like one dude had zip ties and maybe a sheriff's badge on his belt. I mean, that was about the extent of the armament they brought.
I think there were 3 pistols found in the group.
Mm-hmm.
All of them on federal police officers in non-duty clothes, if I remember. There was an ATF agent, a DEA agent, and something else.
Right. And if these guys are planning these seditious acts and they forgot their guns, then they're just completely insane and retarded to think that they could overthrow a government without artillery or bombs or a huge arsenal. So I'm starting to wonder, maybe our government's lying to us here.
Are you trying to say that this is political convictions? Anyways, Joe Biggs, Florida leader of Proud Boys, he was sentenced to 17 years in prison for conspiring to derail the peaceful transfer of power. Prosecutors asked for a 33-year sentence. Prosecutors say Biggs was a part of the driving force behind the violence on January 6th by facilitating breaches at police lines and helping crowds advance to the Capitol. Now, Rachel Zell, Zell-Rell. Man, I dyslexic that name up. Zach Rell.
Well, before you go to Zach, I just want to state that Briggs is an Army veteran who sustained a head injury in Iraq and then was a correspondent for the conspiracy website.
For InfoWars for Alex Jones' gig.
Which actually turns out some of that stuff is true, I heard.
Oh, yeah.
Some of those conspiracies actually
you don't want to start
true.
A penny jar for that bastard. You'll be broke. Kelly Riggs is Rhodes is a Army veteran, Yale Law. Zach Rell, leader of the Proud Boys, sentenced to 15 years in prison alongside Biggs last week for conspiring to derail the peaceful transfer of power. Prosecution asked for a 30-year sentence. Now, this guy, I still don't think 15 years because that's ridiculous. I mean, remember what I said, that Gabriele Princip got, I think he got 10 years for killing an archduke, for killing the next leader of the Austrian Empire.
The guy who started World War I?
Yeah.
He didn't live.
Well, he died of tuberculosis in prison, but he only got sentenced. He caught tuberculosis in prison, but he only got 10 years for killing the next king.
You only need like 1 year in one of those Austrian Empire.
But the crazy thing
dungeons.
is look at these years. They're honestly, these are life enders. Mm-hmm. How old do you think Enrique is?
old enough.
40?
But you
So he's going to be 62 when he gets out?
Well, don't you just have to wait to the next Republican president to get pardoned?
That's why. Are these just political? Are these, well, let's finish these off because I got some. I'm going to go Alex Jones tonight.
The frogs are gay.
Now this guy, he did some shit. Rel, he sprayed chemical irritant at police officers outside the Capitol. Lied about the assault when he testified. Rel also led at least 3 other men into the Capitol, into a senator's office to smoke cigars and pose for photos. Peter Schwartz, 14 years. Pennsylvania was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Schwartz was found guilty in December on 10 charges, including 4 felony charges of assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers while using a dangerous weapon. A jury convicted Schwartz on assault and civil disorder charges for throwing a chair at officers and spraying them with pepper spray. He's got 38 felony convictions back to 1991. Schwartz is Daniel Rodriguez, DJ Rodriguez, who drove a stun gun into a police officer's neck on January 6, was sentenced to 12 years in prison in June. Former DC police officer Michael Fanone's body camera showed the officer screaming in pain after Rodriguez shocked him with the stun gun. Sorry, it's late, and I am too dumb to read. According to the Associated Press, Rodriguez also deployed a fire extinguisher at police officers and shoved a wooden pole at the police line. And when he was let out of the courtroom after sentencing, he yelled, "Trump won." Dominic Pizzola, the New York Proud Boy, was sentenced 10 years in prison last week for triggering the January 6 attack on the Capitol when he smashed a window with a stolen police riot shield. Pizzola also filmed himself inside Capitol smoking a cigar and celebrating the breach. So he's probably in the room with that other cat. Pizzola, unlike other Proud Boy members, was a newcomer who didn't write violent online messages leading up to the January 6 attack, according to the Associated Press. However, the judge argued that Pizzola was still the tip of the spear in allowing rioters into the Capitol. And I've noticed they say January 6 as often as they can in this. I think it's to grab those heartstrings of people who thought that was, worse than 9/11 and Pearl Harbor and, Thomas Webster, retired New York City police officer who assaulted a DC officer in the front lines on the Capitol riot, was sentenced 10 years in prison last week. Webster was the first defendant to present a self-defense argument, though a jury rejected the claim because he tackled a DC officer and grabbed his gas mask. Webster has said he wishes he had never gone to Washington. So,
shoulda, woulda, coulda.
So we got 10 years all the way up to 22. Now, you mentioned
so what do the oppositions get? What do they get?
We'll dig into that here in just a second. Nothing really. I think the longest term that they've got out of all of the Antifa and BLM rights is 3 years. I think is the longest. I mean, they only killed people and shot police officers and threw Molotov cocktails at people and stuff. But we are in a hyper-partisan political time, and it's not the first time the U.S. has been here when we're seeing political adjudications come out. I'm sure that most of these are going to go before the Supreme Court and some argument will be handled there, or maybe even go into a higher district. I don't know. But then let's say a Republican wins, and he cuts them loose. What I want to Do you think that these are just straight up? Do you think these are political sentencing, that these are on par with what they should be for what actually happened that day? And for you listeners out there, especially you that might be Democrat leaning, ask yourself, take the Proud Boys name out of it, take January 6th out of it, just put in a blank person without a political leaning and blank area without the political nuances involved, and ask yourself, would this be a justified sentence, or do you think we might be finding political sentencing, maybe to bolster a side? Would these be called out of hand if, say, what was it, Black Lives Matter in 2019 raided the Wisconsin Capitol House? Is that correct? Marched around and held them hostage for 4 hours. And none of them got any jail time, by the way, or even had to get a lawyer for their whatever. But if they got 10 years out of that, would you find that justified? And I think what you need to concern yourself with is this tit for tat. So when Trump was president, the Democrats did everything they could to impeach him on anything. You know, he wore white after Labor Day, impeach. You know, he ate dessert before the main course, impeach. They wanted to everything. The media went hardcore at him on everything that happened. If you follow that, and I'm not a big Trump fan, but Ray Charles could have saw what the fuck was going on there.
Well, hey, if he ate dessert before the main course, fuck him, huh?
But we're seeing the Republicans right now might be gearing up to throw an impeachment trial at Biden. And how do you think he's going to fare with what's going on there? Is there nothing there that you need to be concerned with? You know, is there going to be any egg on the White House's face after this? And I'm not saying that Fox News is innocent. You know, although if Biden encounters two different lengths of rug material, you better get him some handrails, because that motherfucker's eating shit. But are we going to get this tit for tat?
Is this going to be forever now?
Is this good? Well, maybe not forever, but until we have a big something. I mean,
But again, it goes back to saying, as I was saying previously, it's getting more and more insane in the current direction this country is going. So now when the Republicans are in power, all the Democrats or anything that's politically leaning towards the left, they're going to be punished harsher than would otherwise be. And then vice versa, when there's Democrats in office, if you're a right leaning conspiracy theorist, you're probably going to be given the cement rape cell much longer than you should. And this is the downward spiral of social decay that I almost, if it can't correct itself, maybe it's just better it just goes faster and harder until finally it does disintegrate into whatever it's going to be in the future. I mean, it's just better to get there now than it is to wait and continue on with this enduring marathon of insanity. I would rather see this thing just break apart and start over from the ground up rather than have to endure this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, but what happens? What happens if a Republican gets in next and decides to start stirring that pot, and then a Democrat after that.
Yeah.
And the pot gets stirred again, and then again, and then again.
It becomes too dangerous to let your enemies take power after you leave. What happens when it gets too dangerous to let the adversarial side peacefully assume power?
Yeah. I don't know.
Dun, dun.
Sounds like Holly's here.
Oh, we have a guest.
Come on in, Holly. Have a seat. How did your meeting go tonight?
Great. Sorry for that long.
You're okay.
Let's see. What color are you? Orange?
Yeah, they're all in
Oh,
order.
how cool are these?
What color am I? Check 1, 2.
Yeah, you're
Check
that
2,
color.
1.
So, well,
Testing.
you missed out. I tried holding off as long as I could on talking about.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Really?
I hear you.
I don't hear me.
Might be something with the headphones.
You're on, trust me.
Yep. Okay. So Holly's here for the very end.
Sorry, I missed it. What
That's
did I
okay.
miss? Anything good?
We chatted. What all did we chat about? We chatted about. Oh, we just got done with talking about the Proud Boys convictions.
Oh my goodness.
22 years.
Hey, I have a question. Do you remember when the BLM riots were happening? I'm sorry, the not so peaceful protests.
The Summer of Love.
Yeah. How many of those arrested? How many did the FBI track down for 3 years? And how many actually served more than a day or maybe 20 in jail? Do we know those statistics?
I think the longest sentence we got out of all of the BLM Summer of Love was 3 years, but that person got released early after 4 months and got put on probation for another like 6 months or something. That was an individual who threw a Molotov cocktail at a police car.
Was it you? Well, how many were bailed out by PACs that were working with our own vice president or other Democrat leaders?
So you're coming to the conclusion that maybe our political system is more like a mafia boss family.
I hate to say it. I'm not saying our political system. I'm saying our justice system, which is worse. Because our justice system, spelled out in the Constitution on paper, is the best in the world. But the problem you have is it's weaponized. And I mean, like it or not, Trump's getting far more attention than he would probably get otherwise. Every charge they bring on him and every indictment, what they maybe don't realize, or maybe they do, but that allows him to get an actual opportunity to explore those charges for his side. Stuff like telling the election was a fraud. Well, now he gets to put that on trial in front of the whole United States. His proof that it was a fraud, which normally that evidence would be thrown out. But when they're actually charging him with certain things, it leaves exploratory evidence on his side.
I got one more thing to, and we talked about, remind me before we get out of here. We talked about, that's the case. Are we going to be in a constant escalation with every turnover of power? Is it going to...
The problem we have is bureaucrats, unelected bureaucrats. These people know, without a doubt, they will outlast any president, any party. House is Republican, the Senate is Democrat, or the presidency is Republican, whatever it is. Those bureaucrats stay in the same place. Fauci stayed in the same place for decades. Whether he was doing great at his job or not, the public doesn't know because there's no accountability to the public. It's just the electeds are who they're accountable to. And honestly, the government's way too big, way too big. When a certain department can misuse or lose $600 million in an error, I think your department's too big.
Well, good thing they can just keep printing it.
That's a good point. And they have been.
So it startles me that these things happen, but it also startled me that Becky Edwards had 30% plus of the second district's vote for the Republican nominee. I mean, she was almost there. And, this is another person.
Of course, you got to ask yourself how many Democrats registered Republican this year just to do that.
Yeah.
She was a big one for register to vote, without saying, Democrats register to vote. She never said it out loud, not that I saw on Twitter, but she was quite boisterous about registering to vote. And our legislature actually put into place where you couldn't register. I think there was a certain timeline where you couldn't register to be a Republican to vote in this primary without a certain distance. So people that want to just register for Republican, vote in the election, and then re-register.
What was that distance? Because you don't have to go re-register as a Democrat.
Well, you're not, yeah.
You don't have to, because still, when it comes to the general election.
Yeah, you can vote any way you like.
Yeah. You could be registered Republican and go in there and,
Well, you can be registered Republican and go into a Republican caucus. You can be a registered Democrat and go into the Democrat caucus. But
I'm sure all 85 of them in this state are nervous as shit of that.
There's more. Sadly, they have ours next to their name. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't take offense. But some of them seem to be. The Celeste vote was close, and in Tooele County, our turnout was less than favorable, I would say. We had a 33% turnout, but I always have to back this up. We had a special election in the middle of summer, August. We were able to put out one candidate out of convention, which normally we put out two, and the vote took place right after a holiday weekend, so it couldn't have probably been a worst case scenario. So I don't want to say, it was terrible, but 30% of our base showed up and voted, and Celeste was ruling the entire time. But there was one moment where she was only up by 12 votes against Bruce Huff.
What do you...
Not Becky. In this county, Becky did not do well.
Yeah. Who? What do you think was with all those polls that had Becky winning over the last 3 weeks? We talked about that. What do you think that was? Dave postulated that it was the pollsters just trying to shade the vote.
I would almost agree with that.
I'm wondering if they didn't just poll, we're taking a poll today outside of the University of Utah campus.
Absolutely. We're going to take 150 people.
Yeah.
That they said the grounds were, it was 150 people that lean Republican.
That was their poll, and people took it serious?
Yeah.
Their parameters didn't even...
They didn't call delegates, did they? Did they call any state delegates? Did you get any polls for... Because there are times during a race that I'll get a poll. Someone will call me a pollster asking who would I vote for if the election was today. And I got one, and that was in the very beginning before convention. And I think this one with Becky Edwards is pollsters. I think that's what they did. They polled, and the people that leaned Republican.
It is time, and this is for you Democrats too. When a pollster comes up, tell them to kick fucking rocks. They're shady bastards. One, if you're a Democrat and they totally printed this and got your hopes up. And two, if you're a Republican and they're just trying to skew the elections, tell them to kick rocks. They're lying to you either way. Both sides of that are I don't want to say victims, but kind of abused in that system.
Well, actually, Jared, if the poll came out today, what I would say is, turn the poll upside down and you will see the truth. Because they had Celeste on the very bottom.
Yeah.
And they had Becky Edwards on the top, where actually, I think, if you just tipsy.
Do you think Becky's done? Because she keeps throwing her hat in the ring, and every time
I don't know.
she comes out, she must. I mean,
You've got Senator Romney seats coming open.
That's like if I
Governor
walked.
Cox.
That's like if I walked out. Yeah, that's like if I walked out into the beauty contest looking like I do, and people went, "Oh," and I said, "I'll come back next time."
And this time, I'll shave.
Yeah, no, I'm not even going to shave. I'm not going to change a damn thing. I'm going to come out the exact same
Yeah,
way.
at least you'd show up to the beauty contest. Becky Edwards doesn't even do that.
But no, I just keep showing up. Ugly. I'd be wearing a muumuu with purple polka dots on it.
You just have to say that you feel like you're a woman, and you'll win.
People on the front row. People on the front row would be shielding their children's eyes because I'm so ugly in this beauty contest. And
Is he
Becky
fishing
just
for a
keeps
compliment right now.
No, I'm
Just call him a
straight
hero.
up. I'm straight up saying that's what Becky's doing. Is she comes out.
He's so brave.
She
You are
comes
brave.
out for the Senate,
No,
and
you'd win based on bravery.
nobody. It's stunning and brave. So much you go, girl.
Paralyzing.
Anyways, she comes out when she ran for Senate against Lee and fell flat on her face. Right? Bought her way into it, fell flat on her face. Now she comes out for this congressional race, falls flat on her face. Do you think?
I don't know that she fell on her face. She just didn't win.
She bought her way in and got what did she walk away with? What percent?
I have to tell you. Well, I think I've only got my counties.
Well, let's put it this way. She was damn close this time in the 2nd district.
Too close
The
for
second
me.
district, which I consider to be pretty solid red. And I kind of fault, I don't know, I feel like I kind of fault the system that the Republicans built with all of this voting going on at the delegate race. I mean,
The
ranked choice voting. I'm glad I got to stick it out to the end because my wife was not happy. Okay, and I imagine I'm not the only man in the delegate party with an unhappy wife. And I bet you a lot of people got dragged out of that delegate vote session.
Well,
somewhere.
it was in Delta, which everyone had to drive home in the dark, and everyone was traveling quite a distance.
So like I'm just saying, if we had one vote at that system, I think Greg Hughes would have taken it. In fact, I know he would have.
Oh yeah, he
And
walked away the first. What was the first 3 cycles?
I think he would have
Oh,
smeared
he
Becky.
went all the way to the end. It
But
was
the
him
first 3 he
and Celeste at the
dominated.
very end.
The first 3 cycles he dominated. Like walked away with over 40%. The first 3 with that big field.
Yeah.
But it says the others bled out. Their delegates went to whoever they sponsored, and Greg only soaked up who? Whose did he soak up?
The mayor from Leeds.
Yeah, that's the only one Greg got. So I don't know.
Well, I think we left ourselves very vulnerable to Becky Edwards as a Republican Party. That is my point here. But now Celeste is going to she's going to the ballot, and I think she'll win. That's my prediction. Mm-hmm. The next contender will probably be the Libertarian candidate,
Brad Green.
I think he's got.
We did talk about that.
Back.
Brad Green is pulling all your conservatives out of your party.
I haven't met Brad Green.
Is
he at a Cedar?
Yes, he's
So
pulling.
I've heard about him.
He's pulling all of your hardcore conservatives.
Okay, so here's the moment of truth.
Yeah, let's see.
Celeste Malloy received 38.55%.
Okay.
34,306 votes. Becky Edwards, 33.41%. So
Okay, so
roughly
she was
4 points.
She
And
was a contender on the Beauty Queen stage.
29,737 votes. Mm-hmm. And then Bruce Huff, which many people thought would split the vote, that Celeste and him would split it and give it to Becky. Obviously, that wasn't the case. I mean,
Well, he obviously did split a lot of it.
but I think he kind of took from both of them pretty equally.
What would he have pulled from Becky?
Yeah, what would he?
What
pull from
argument did he have that Becky lovers would have
I guess
thought?
you're right. He got 28%, almost even. 24,952 votes.
I'm sure he exclusively pulled from Celeste. One, they had the same message. They just had different delivery vehicles for completing their, sorry to be rude, their agenda that's a pipe dream, of restraining our federal government. It's not going to happen. It's not. There's no way we're going to send one congressperson to D.C. and boom, fireworks, and all of a sudden we got to restrain government.
I think Celeste was pretty open about that, actually.
She
was very open about that.
She is very open about that. She's the one that has a message that could possibly, the reason I supported Celeste is she's the one that had a possibility for that to work.
Well, and you got to
she understood what parameters Congress works within.
When you have a fine line, I mean, I think Greg Hughes would have been a wrecking ball in there, but I want a Marjorie Taylor Greene, which a county like ours may want, but a county like Davis may not. A county like Utah County, Washington County may not. She's going to get a lot done and make some noise, but is she going to get on committees? Is she going to get these assignments? I mean,
did she really get a lot done though? When her and Massey tried to do the force the vote during COVID,
she's still one person.
They tried. Two people. And Massey.
Well, the Freedom Caucus is also
Massey
growing.
is my favorite congressman. He's the shit. It's the cat's meow.
I like him. I like Jim Jordan too.
Yeah, and they tried forcing the vote, and they got run out of there by their own party.
And that is the problem we face.
There's the problem.
People who run have to be prepared to be a one term. And stop caring about committees, stop caring about that next election. And it's easier said than done.
And we've got to quit caring about fundraising for the party while we're there. We've got to work for the people who send us there.
If you don't fundraise, then you don't get campaign
reelected.
contributions.
You're not running again.
Well, that's the problem. What if you're doing exceptional work?
Then you don't have to fundraise.
Well, and I do like the idea of congressmen and senators being home.
Let me put it like
and
this.
being accountable to their people, informing their populace what they're up to.
I don't know. What's your... I don't know. It's something you really like. Favorite alcohol, favorite whatever. You like them because it delivers to you what you want.
Ooh, that reminds me of something I want to bring up.
Okay. And if you're a good congressperson, you don't have to go out and fundraise.
I'm sorry. I don't think the American populace is educated in what their congressman is doing.
Then they get what they deserve.
But that same, I think that...
Because you've got a choice.
People who try to be educated...
You've got a choice. You can work and do the job, or you can scream about how you're going to... Or you can
unfortunately,
not do the
sound
job.
Bites are what gets back to the average voter.
Okay, sure. You can not do the job, but talk about how hard you're going to do it next time. Those are your two choices.
I'm still thinking of the voters. And actually, I wish every voter would learn all they can and be as highly engaged as possible. I understand that that's hard, and it's hard to get through the muck and mud of what you're hearing is actual truth or not. And, you have to always look at the source. And right now, sources are muddled. It's hard. It's hard to know what's real and what isn't. And luckily, more people have taken the red pill and are awake, right? They're at least privy to the fact that believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. Because, that's where we are right now. You can't even trust your eyes on a video these days all the time. And I think there are more people that are getting to be more speculative of the government, but then there's still just this huge majority that are in ignorance, and it's bliss. They don't want any more politics. They're done. They don't want to hear it.
We're a very well-fed society, and we're very susceptible to propaganda. I don't know if that's because of our high intelligence or whatnot, but colorful signs and flashy messages and campaign slogans and red hats with MAGA on it. These are influential tools, and to think that you would sit back and not bring your gun to the gunfight when it comes to election day, I think that's not sensible.
You mean people who don't vote in federal elections aren't bringing their gun to the gunfight? You mean someone like that? Jared?
Someone who hasn't opted to eat the old ashy dry dog turd or the freshly snapped off one?
You can't polish a turd.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, what are we getting out of our federal government? I vote local. Vote the shit out of local.
Well, you get something out of it, or they're getting something out of you. One is the way. Either way, Jared, it's
I mean,
happening.
We are the product.
The Democrats and the Republicans are going to go there and argue whether taxes should be 34 or 34.8%.
Sounds like an argument to
Either
me.
way, I'm getting raped.
Well, yeah, of course you are. I mean, you are the tax-paying citizen, and that's kind of our job, is to fund this machine so that it can go up against the other machines around the world,
so that they can ensure that they have a guy that they groom out of a private high school who teaches math, so he can buy a little island. We all go get a little piece, and he can videotape it, then blackmail us later, so that we can keep this system
on the track
going.
again. I think the problem we have in the federal government, and I really feel like Utah has been, at least where Chris Stewart's concerned, because I can actually speak firsthand about Chris Stewart and Mike Lee on the federal level, and Burgess. I mean, I've worked with Burgess Owens. I mean, he's legit. I get it. But I think the party lines are marred. And what Norma is saying, and the party system, I'm the chair of the Republican Party here in Tooele County, and I've always voted on the person, and I don't vote straight party line. Not to say that my person isn't a Republican almost every time, but I also, like David, I've tried to take an actual effort to get to know the candidates, get to know their issues, and some of your issues are way out there in left field, but they're really important to you, and it's not the everyday person is asking them, but by asking them, you get to see their reaction, engage it in real time, and you get to hear their thought pattern as they're explaining their answer. The problem is it is propaganda, and it's hard to differentiate between the parties at a federal level. And that's got me in the gut. I don't love that. I don't love that our own party hindered Trump from getting far more done that he tried to get done that would have only benefited our economy, the American people. I mean, he had to fight his own party, and in return, he had to make all these executive orders, which could be turned on a dime. New president, new orders.
You know, I would argue that it benefited the world. And I'm not a Trump fan.
I know, but you're right.
But by whatever he did, being a crazy ass or whatever, keeping Putin out of Ukraine benefited the world.
Stop North Korea from his missile play.
It's insane. Kind of made the Middle East get along again
Peace
for a
in the
minute.
Middle East. Any other president would have been given accolades. I mean, Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize before he was even able to do anything.
Honestly, I think the one time I watched CNN praise Donald Trump, the one time. Do you guys remember what it was? Mm-mm. When he fired rockets into Syria. That is the one time.
I don't even
Their
remember.
words were, he finally looks presidential.
Okay, I was going to say define praised, because even that.
They praised him.
I want to talk
It's
about.
almost like Raytheon got on the phone and says, yeah, he's spending some of our money. Yeah, give him good numbers. Hung up.
Or BlackRock. Finally.
Well, BlackRock doesn't care about the wars.
No.
Except maybe, vets going over, losing their life, and then their wives lose a house, they get to buy it. So, yeah, indirectly, I suppose.
Well, they invested a lot into Ukraine, so if Ukraine gets overrun by Russia, they don't get to pay him back.
Oh, I'll bet BlackRock's got that figured out. No problem for them.
So, can I talk about what I wanted to talk about now?
Of course.
It's Holly moment.
I am a little bit, and this is just one issue. I'm a little bit alarmed with Activision. Do you guys follow the rule that Activision just put out on all their Call of Duty players?
No, I've heard about it, but
We got the notice when I logged into their new update that they are now recording.
Yeah, we're recording everything.
All the devices in search of white supremacy.
Mm-hmm. You know what? They've probably been recording it the whole time. They're just now telling you.
Bullying. Now, my question is, what about...
This 29-year-old lady has never bullied teenagers on Call of Duty.
I am always the victim of it. Do you know how many people, not white people, use the N-word on that game? Too many to count.
Well, the Spanish people, that's actually that's how they say the word black.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are you going to criticize and condemn the entire Spanish community when they go through their Crayola crayon box?
I would say find another game.
Yeah, that's where...
This is how you do it. Remember, you've got to do the way of Target and Bud Light. And you don't have to have a parade or a speech or an argument about it. You just say, I found another game. Thank you. When Call of Duty 8 comes out, you don't purchase it.
Oh, so hard.
Well, just get it out of your system now, Holly. Go on there and be like, your character name can be Adolf Hitler, and you go bully everyone with your automatic killing rifle. And
automatic killing rifle.
Well, isn't that the amazing. Whole game? The whole purpose is to bully the other team into...
No, it's not. But they do have proc chat now, so I can actually talk to the guy I'm about to kill, but I can also tell him, like, oh, I'm by myself, don't kill me. And then my team gets him. But that's not bullying. That's just good, clean fun. And usually I'm in a match against other people, and there is a point to the game. You're supposed to plunder and get as much money as possible and try not to get killed.
Sounds like bullying to me.
Oh, then war is bullying to you. Because we're at war, kid. We're at war.
Time for the mission.
It is. It's a mission. We go on it. I usually direct them where we're going. And my team is like my backbone, and I count on them. And
what's your character's name, Holly?
I'm Slim Furious.
That sounds...
I created the account, though, like 20 years ago.
That sounds kind of ethnic, so you might be able to get away.
Oh, no. One of my teammates has already been flagged, and we don't even know what he said. But I can tell you right now...
that's going to be the haunting thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, nobody on my team uses racial slurs in any way, shape, or form.
But it doesn't have to be racial slurs.
No, it could be just bad language.
Yeah, bad language.
The word retard is bad now.
I got you.
Did you know that?
I drop that word way too often.
I remember when
generally about myself.
I don't ever drop that word, so I'm not worried about that.
I say that way too often. But yeah, I'm in, that's just where we are in this world is you've got to, you don't have to do anything. But if it's a stand you have, we are in a place where our only option left is to vote with our dollar. Mm-hmm. Because look at it. Right now, I know you guys are both mainstream people. I am not. But the threat to me is we got banks kicking people with my views right off. You'll get an email from your bank, hey, we've closed your account. We're mailing you a check of your balance. And any money you've got coming in, they're just going to kick it back to where return to sender.
Why?
Because we're
they don't like your gun purchases, or they don't like... It could
be gun purchases. It could be my extreme libertarian ideals.
It's because you didn't vote Democrat.
But how do they know? Like, are they really taking this much effort to go?
They haven't gone after
one person.
They're obviously not going after me. But let's look at who they got. What's that? Patreon. It's essentially a banking system, a payment system. They went after all of those guys. Yes, they got Alex Jones. But they also
went after OnlyFans too.
They got Carl Benjamin, who is kind of just a liberal centrist that was very stern on his views and thought that...
How stupid, though, because it just gives more attention. Now I'm curious. I got to go look this guy up and find out what he said.
Why do you think Subscribestar exists now? It exists because of that moment.
Well, I think censorship across the board is wrong.
Now,
but it's really hard for me because I also believe that any type of porn site should have to be www.porn, so that no pornography can be just accidentally discovered by someone. I'm not saying they should ever
That means
censor
there's
porn.
never going to be a teenager to type .com in again, a teenage boy to type .com
Maybe.
again.
But if I can protect a teenage boy from that brain
no,
rot.
my honest opinion is
Hold on. Now, why can't all people wear burqas? And then we don't have to worry about that. I mean, like, what is going to be defined as sensitive to you?
Oh no, I'm just saying.
Might be incredibly extreme to the Taliban or something. And
Yeah, but this isn't like that. This is me saying, first of all, you have
that's-
to own a computer. Second of all, you have to be interested in pornography. Third, I'm giving you a direct road to it. You don't even have to look. As long as it says .porn on it, you know exactly that you're getting into a porn website. And if I'm a porn creator, I create the best website, pornhub.porn. But everybody's going to my website. I'm giving them exactly what they're looking for. And now I am not liable for the children that observe me.
I actually like what
I'm not liable for anything that is accidentally seen, because I am superhighway to what you're looking for. I think that is fair because you get to use your freedom.
No, I'm not saying that's not fair, but I'm saying, like, what about girls in bikinis? What about even one piece bathing suits? I mean, a lot of cultures find
so
that stuff
you're arguing
offensive.
well, and also in Europe and in England, naked breasts are okay on your
Well, we're
TV
in America,
commercials.
and I would suggest
So
that-
you're arguing? Are you arguing from the point of different cultures might have different levels of what they consider pornography?
Yeah, and
I'm just arguing that I think states should decide. I'm a states' rights guy. I'm a 10th Amendment guy.
Well, our state is deciding.
What Utah
They're
did,
putting
I think, is just fine.
I just think that, honestly,
And the only reason Pornhub did that, and we went through it here on the show, Pornhub did that because they took a 50% hit, because we copied verbatim Louisiana's law. Alabama, Louisiana, and I want to say Mississippi or somewhere, all down there in the Bible Belt,
but let people know what we're talking about.
this law. They wrote a law that said to go on to porn sites, the porn site has to elicit a third-party authentication system to make sure you're of age. So Utah put the law through, and Pornhub
How
took
come
a
we
stand.
can put that law through and not put a buy alcohol and deliver it to your house law through?
That was another one of the arguments we had during that same podcast.
we are extremely good at restrictions to protect. But when it comes to promoting liberties and freedoms,
And
we're not
logic.
that great at it.
If I can verify your age through a porn site because of a third-party authentication, why can't I verify your age as
And
21 and able
honestly,
for me to ship alcohol to your house?
And I'll go libertarian with this. I think it should be, they do it through a credit card just at
The same laws would apply. That
just simple.
pornography could be viewed by someone at your house without you knowing, and they're using your identity, your name. Just like if I drop liquor off at your
could even be-
house because I've delivered it, someone else in your house could consume it. That argument, I'm sorry, that opens
Well,
the door. If you're going to restrict pornography like that, be prepared to have. It's a slippery slope. I mean, I think pornography is dangerous, especially for young people, not just boys, for girls. I think it's dangerous when their gray matter is
I don't know. This pornography flooding the internet, I don't see any bad outcomes going on with
my
our
gosh.
teenagers right now. I think they're all perfectly healthy on an even kill. We don't have people coloring their
Sex trafficking is
purple
ridiculous, and we've got insanity, and these kids are lost. And I think pornography is dangerous.
You remember
I think
that-
it is dangerous.
You remember that guy? God, where'd they live in? Was they in Louisiana? I want to say Baton Rouge, and his kid had a karate instructor who started molesting him and kidnapped him and took him like California or Washington. And then
I remember. Told him he was going to
when they-
Disneyland, and they found him at a hotel.
when the police brought him home, the dad was wearing a ball cap and glasses at the payphone. You can watch the video. And as they're walking by with the police, he just turns around and pulls out the revolver, and no more trial. And I think he got 6 months of probation.
Well, that's the benefit of a
So
jury.
he wasn't a proud boy, is what you're saying.
This was in the 80s. Shoots.
Son's child molester.
See, that doesn't have a political bias to it. I mean, both sides would probably celebrate
Gary
it.
Pluchet.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, there he is. Right there. Look at him. I wonder if it'll show the video on here. If it does. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, that guy's got pedo written all over him. Yeah, right there.
Oh yeah, he was standing at the phone.
I've got
That's Dad.
like a reporter.
right there. Here, let me adjust the screen for our listener, our viewer. Yep. And
Do you think anyone's on live right now, or are they going to watch this later?
most of it'll probably be later.
I
But we have
apologize
like
in
a few
advance
people.
for the late hour. Anyone that's on live.
But yeah, look at that. They're walking by. This is in the 80s. And the cops are right behind the dude in the red. Right behind. They're escorting. He's in handcuffs right
Is
now.
this a video you can play?
No, this one isn't.
This is like a snapshot of the video. Isn't
Yeah.
it?
Because I do recall his head was turned, and the second he started walking is when he pulled the gun, turned, and just
Yeah,
pow.
see, there he is. The cops are walking. Gary's standing right here. And right when he gets beside him,
And you see the press is all
38 under the arm, shoots him in the cheek, lights out. Look at the dudes. Look at that. That's, and I'm not saying that we should hunt down pedophiles and kill them, but I'm not saying we shouldn't.
Have you guys seen the show? It's a documentary on, I think, Netflix. It's like The Devil You Know or something. They have a whole series now of people who've done horrible things that you know. But basically, the premise is a family in Idaho befriends another family. And the guy is molesting their child, and then he kidnaps her,
Has sex with the mom.
sleeps with the mom, sleeps
Sleeps
with the dad.
the dad and him are doing stuff, and then kidnaps the daughter, and then the family kind of tries to cover it up.
Yep, they cover it up
And
for
it's a neighbor that
days
actually comes in and goes, "What the hell?"
because they're so embarrassed.
And they're all Mormons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
That documentary had so many twists.
Did
and
you watch
turns.
when the dad's sitting on the couch? He's old now. He's like 100. And he's sitting there and he's like, well, so I. And I'm like, I shut it off after. I was like, this is just, it went
sounds
too
crazy.
deep. The dad
It was
starts
too
talking
crazy.
about that guy, yeah.
But now
Talk
we've
about selling eyes
progressed.
to Eskimos.
Yeah, we've progressed, and you know what else has progressed with it is pornography. It used to be you had to go find a dirty mag from your dad's room, or a friend's dad had it or something. And then when videos came out, it was like, oh my gosh, she had one. And you weren't old enough to shop and buy them in stores. And now, I mean, my kid can be doing a report on the White House and an accidental porn site will shoot up. Now, to me, that's just horrible.
Well, let me
tell a story about this once. I remember my wife and all her little friends are downstairs with my great uncle. Right? I mean, this guy's 96 when he passed away, but and all her friends are from other countries. They're au pairs, right? And they're on the internet. I think they were trying to show my great uncle something. And then just some random sex site pops up, and some girl starts screaming bloody murder, or
And your
not
uncle
murder,
jumped
but
up and did a dance. It's like, I've never felt so young in my life.
I don't know if that was the exact reaction they got, but it's invasive how like all these advertisings will just start popping up on you or wherever you are, and it's almost an invasion of privacy. It should be illegal to do something like that. And I think if you had to put a .porn domain on it, that could stop those invasive moments from creeping up on you.
And you're right. What is the difference between, I mean, it's like a visual sexual assault. Especially on a child who accidentally looks up a White House and it's a porn site. And I remember this happened to my child, and she was so freaked out and worried that she might get in trouble, disgusted by what she's witnessed in the 10 seconds before she's like, ah! And she was little.
What do you do,
And
though?
what if you're walking, it's just like the pride parades, though, with the men walking around with the dingleberries showing everyone.
I get it. That's a public. But what do you do, though?
It's either a crime or it isn't. You can't have it be a sexual assault crime on a Monday But if you're during the gay pride parade, you can't pee on a dumpster.
No, what do you do about
Monday.
the internet? How do you?
I think the third party
Authentication. I like
good,
that.
but I also like having there be a dot porn that is full superhighway to any porn
So
site.
if you're going to have anything that could be declared pornography, you have to have dot porn on there.
Yeah, and honestly, I think girls in bikinis.
Well, let me ask you a
isn't
question.
Porn. I mean, if it's
you do have to declare what is and is not at that point, because there's advertising for girls' clothes
or sex act.
But
in America, in Europe, they don't care about boobs and stuff.
Okay, but how do you bifurcate those areas? I mean, is it going to be like right now? I can go look at a European website, right?
Sure,
and I'll get ads from European people that can sell stuff from Europe, right? Not that Europe makes anything anymore. Sorry, Europe, we know you're dead. China or Indonesia or Vietnam, I can get ads from them that sell stuff. So how do you bifurcate that? Is it better to have the Wild West internet and have parents make sure that they set up strict controls?
They can't control. That's the problem. I'm a strict control parent, and this still sneaks by.
Sure.
By design, I think. And that's what's bothering me.
It could be.
And if we just say enough's enough, life sentence for child predators, life sentence. And for child traffickers, life sentence. But I think that
can you picture in your mind how
buying this pornography online? I think they're just as big a predator as the person who's making it.
Can you picture someone buying pornography as a predator?
No, a child pornography, yes.
Oh, if you're buying child pornography.
But pornography, no.
You're creepy.
I think everyone's got a kink, and I'm not judging. I'm saying there's a place for it, and it doesn't belong in front of your kid. Just like I'm saying a drag show of any type doesn't belong in front of your kid. There's a reason they're performed at bars. The's a reason. Because
I agree. I agree. I'm just wondering,
should be the same.
Do you want a hyper-controlled internet, or do you want a Wild West open internet?
I don't see it like hyper-controlled.
Neither do I. I don't think
any
that's
organization is .org. They're all funneled through .org. You're getting an organization.
You've opened up a website. You don't have to do an organization as .org.
No, but I'm saying
you can select. You can select .com, .org, .net.
Yeah, you get to choose. But if you have a specific genre.
And then if you're in Europe, you can do .failed state. If you're in Russia, you can do .Putin. If you're in Middle East, you can do .Allah. If you're
Americans believe, whatever our crimes on the books are, federal crimes regarding sexual abuse against a person, if it's illegal to sexually assault a woman because you're standing 5 feet from her and you're naked, shouldn't it be illegal to be all of a sudden popped up into her feed where she has no prep for it? I don't like this unknowing assault on these visual horrendous acts that they're getting worse and worse too. Smut porn is actually a thing.
What?
Not smut porn. What is it called? Where they kill you.
Oh, yeah.
What are those tapes called?
That sounds like murder.
Right. It's murder, but they produce these films. What are they called?
I don't know.
So the producers of these pornographers produce it so it looks like a snuff film.
We don't need to talk about Epstein and
this
Clinton.
is no kidding.
They're not murdering the person though, for real.
Who knows where it comes from? And in the dark web, you don't know. And this is why I'm like, look, everyone has their kink. I'm not going to judge their kink. The problem is the younger you get into pornography, the more violent or the more young or the more creepy things can get.
Even if it's not creepy in that, it damages your prospects for future happiness with a significant other.
Absolutely.
That's just basic. But I agree. I want to figure, I would like to do that, but how do you keep children away from pornography? Now, granted, my child's 28. So
that's not a child anymore, Jared.
He's well past that.
That's not even a child in Obamacare era. He's 2 years on his own with health care.
Now, if we did a .porn domain where everything is registered as that, what about violence? So I remember I grew up watching movies where people are getting stabbed and blown up and shit like that.
And that's where that not also, Europeans have more problem with violence than they do nudity. That's where we're different.
Failed states do failed state stuff. I mean, it's failed state stuff.
I don't think violence, again, I think that's up to the parent. But I think if a child accidentally rolls across violence.
I wonder if they don't have a point, though.
No, there's a good point.
Because
there's the argument,
we definitely
these video games cause people to be more violent? Do them seen it? I don't know, but I know if there was a domain that was a .porn domain and I could go into my computer and completely lock it and my child doesn't accidentally get thrown into a porn site. They didn't have any choice over.
What I would like to see is a free market movement of that because, like I've said before, when the Miami fire started and you heard about all the horrors of that, what's the first thing that came to mind?
The Miami fires?
Yeah, where the police locked people in.
Or the Maui.
Or Maui.
I'm like, Miami's on fire?
Sorry.
Wait, the police locked people in?
Yeah, the police.
They blocked people
They blocked people from the only road that lets you out. They wouldn't allocate water because it had to be done on a fair and equitable basis. They didn't have the pressure to even
run a hose.
All that stuff. But anyways, what's the first thing that came to your mind?
What do you mean? Like when I first heard about the fires, or when I first
when you heard
about
all the shit government did that was extreme failures,
and it brought me back to Katrina. And one thing that I remember is the people trying to protect their homes in Katrina during Katrina had their weapons, and the government came in with military and took their weapons.
Yeah, Utah National Guard.
So what you're saying is we're asking for government to come help us?
Mine was government.
Police state.
Government is incompetence on parade. I do not want the government figuring out how to restrict the internet because I think the internet is the biggest.
You don't need them to. Google's doing it for the government.
Is the biggest freedom-giving ability device there is. But hold on, allow me to finish.
Good about Donald Trump.
Allow me to finish here. But is Google doing that on the behest of government? Because a lot of shit's been coming out.
Most of these people are doing it on the behest of someone.
On the behest of government or controllers of government. But so anyways, I don't want the government getting involved. What I'd like to see is a free market solution, like someone invents a website that says, look, if you're a porn site, you open a domain here, right? You open a domain under our hood. People sign up for one allocation under our
That's kind of what Pornhub did, right?
Fully secure hood. No, Pornhub used a third-party system. What'd you look up?
I got an idea. I wanted to say, type in, is Donald Trump good, and see what happens in a search bar.
You're on Google?
No, actually, this is DuckDuckGo.
Okay, I like DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo came out 4 years ago and said they're censoring stuff now too.
Yeah.
Well, they're owned
the new
by
one
Google.
The new one is Brave, and they're probably doing it too.
But yeah, if you Google is Donald Trump good, you don't get anything that you'd think you would.
Anyways,
look at this. It doesn't give me any other option. So if I search how it changed.
But you're right. Your browsers are different, and that's what is feeding you the propaganda that you're receiving. And your browsers should have a lot of pull to do something like you're talking about, Holly, and it should be organized without government if the
guys,
people are intending to be good, decent people.
We learned during the pandemic, the government didn't have to do one mandate. They didn't have to. Businesses did it on behest of them.
Unless you were in the military or a pilot.
Right. But Delta has required this and this
or
and this.
Or worked in any federal hospital system.
The federal government is the biggest employer in this country
So yes,
now.
the government did do mandates.
Target
but
did
the
their
government
own. Walmart
didn't do
did their own.
One at a time.
Home Depot.
But the government didn't do mandates on Twill Army Depot.
They all had to be vaccinated.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't. How was my
sure?
dad out there?
Was he a contractor?
He didn't listen. I mean, yes, they gave us mandates.
No, they put out 4 times. I remember this, that we're going to have a mandate. It's coming up. Everyone go get vaccinated. And my dad said, yeah, when they come down with the mandate, I'm done. I walk. And they said, but they never came out with an official mandate.
I think they didn't have to, because there was enough pressure coming from the private sector.
And of course, Walmart loved everything that happened during COVID.
Well, yeah, because they got to be the only ones open.
They got a complete monopoly on brick and mortar stores.
Amazon made all the money. Walmart made all the
Target.
money. Home Depot made a ton of money. And the government just kind of picked and choose who was going to be the big lottery winners in that. Because that's not free market. But then again, when you say, let's give it to the free market, and they go ahead and govern themselves in a way that is more...
Do you think any of COVID was free market?
No, I just
do you think one iota? Do you think any scalable measure of the COVID shit was free market?
The crap that Walmart making you go down certain aisles, certain ways, mandating, not serving people. Costco wouldn't let you in without your mask. That wasn't the government. That was Costco's decision.
I'll tell you what. Had around the rest of the nation, other states and other counties not shut down small mom pop businesses, Walmart would not have done that. The only reason Walmart could do that is because the government shut down littler shit.
Oh, I do understand.
And forced them to get zero competition. They handed them a monopoly. Monopolies only exist with government. Only.
I absolutely understand that point of view.
There is no such as a monopoly without government.
But so many people, making essential workers, and then these companies fighting over, well, who's essential? There's so many. Well, why were all of our races shut down at the racetrack? When we're an outdoor venue, we could hold everybody in Utah on our park and even social distance them.
Who's providing funding towards
unelected bureaucrats too?
The elected bureaucrats. Who's providing campaign donations? Who's providing help to the government if they need something? I'm sure Walmart has a lot of influence over the government through that way.
Amazon, Walmart.
Yep. All these big companies, they are in an existential way a part of our government.
Sure.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Sure. I mean, the government at every turn has written laws. Why do you think Tyson chicken's still the biggest chicken?
Why did all those food processing plants burn up over the last year? And why is no one talking about it?
Because maybe the cricket sandwiches are coming.
That's crazy to me.
Do you remember?
Nobody's going, wait a minute, another food processing
Do you remember in the beginning of COVID, we're about 4 months into it, and the pig life cycles have come to the end, and they slaughtered and mass buried like 50,000 pigs.
They did it to turkeys. They did it to chickens too.
I remember the pigs. The pigs was a huge one. Huge, because pigs have a 1-year life cycle before sold. Other than that, they're just a burden. And like 50,000 pigs were just slaughtered. And I remember it because a bulldozer just pushing pigs. It looked like a scene out of what, It
looked like bodies, like the Holocaust.
Yeah. It was wild. And I'm sitting there and I couldn't help but telling everyone, this is an economy destroyer.
Well, have you seen that Bill Gates wants to bury all those trees? Have you seen that report? Because the
buried trees?
Yep. Thousands and thousands of trees. He wants them cut down and buried because they emit the CO2. And I'm just...
They emit the CO2 or they breathe it in?
No, trees make CO2.
No, trees make oxygen. They breathe CO2.
Oxygen. But he says that they're
emitting
something.
We got to get our CO2 up higher,
And I'm like, wait a second.
My mosquito thing I did is failed.
The religion of climate change is so bonkers that this doesn't sound insane to the average person. At least Bill Maher is bringing it up. Mm-hmm. He's like, this is just crazy. This is crazy.
That leads me into my other point. Did either of you catch... Do you guys know who Adam Carolla is?
Yes.
Okay. Did you catch his interview with Tucker Carlson?
Recently? Or an old one?
Like last week.
No, I didn't. But I did watch the recent interview with Tucker and the guy.
Oh, Tucker and Obama's pan flute. Anyways. So Tucker's on. Adam Carolla is one he's the freaking man.
Well, remember, him and Jimmy Kimmel did the Man Show.
Sure,
and it
but
was
Jimmy
a good
Kimmel,
show, and it was funny. And then Jimmy Kimmel went all left-wing, uppity crazy. Because he was just as vulgar as Corolla was on the Man Show. I think Jimmy Kimmel visited an island, and there's a VHS somewhere in a vault. Probably.
And, that's what I think, honestly. That's
the
my
devil, actually. He sold his soul to the devil.
I don't even think it's that. Thing. I think it's that they visit that island. I think that's exactly what Epstein was. He's the honeypot to catch a videotape, and then you belong to them. 100%.
Who's them now?
Probably the same them that it always was.
I'll say it, the lizard people.
The lizard people. Anyways.
Because it can't be the Clintons, because they would have every reason. No, he would have stuff on them. I don't think
the Clintons were them.
He certainly had stuff on them.
I think the Clintons had another tape sitting. Jimmy Kimmel's would have been here in the K section.
Oh, I bet the Clintons had a few.
Bill and Hillary's are up here, like almost in the beginning. Bush is right before them. Right after them would be... something with the E.
But who is them now? Like who? I figure there was too many people that would have killed.
How about we dig into this a little bit? You and I.
That's a conspiracy show, Ollie.
I'll point you. Yeah, that's a different animal.
Is it though? Do you think he killed himself, David?
Ooh, that's a tough one. But anyways, let me talk about this.
Of course I
do. Yeah, me too.
So Adam Carolla's talking to Tucker Carlson, and Tucker says, I should have had the video prepped, but you know what? I'm just going to freeball it because everyone loves it when I do that and I get shit right.
Gross. Tucker?
Adam Carolla asked him about Donald Trump, do you think they're rolling out COVID again? He says they can't. They can't. The people are onto it. Too many people are onto COVID. It wouldn't work again. He says that in order to get Biden reelected and or to get the Democrat back in power or to even just eliminate Trump from getting in there, they're going to start a hard war with Russia. He says we are before the elections in next year in 2024. He says we are going to have U.S. forces engaged with Russia,
which is World War III.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. It depends on if the rest of the world shows up. If the rest of the world was smart, they would say, fuck you both.
Well, it's not our side that's going to show up. It's going to be China, India, Brazil, that whole group. Africa.
India's not going to show up on their side.
China will show up.
No, I doubt it.
Maybe. I don't know. I think China would like to see both of them engaged. China and Russia aren't friends. China has changed their maps. If you look at the world globe.
China would take Taiwan, though, in a heartbeat.
Well, if we're engaged with Russia, why not?
Right. And Europe would have to help because Russia is right on the border of those European NATO countries. But to me, really, the ends justify the means so much, so they're going to start World War III to stay in power. Why would I not? This doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I don't know why you're...
But...
It's not their kids going to war.
It enrages me because I would see and I've asked you this a million times. When is America going to have enough? And what does that look like when Americans go, you know what? Especially rural communities go, we're done. We're taking our country back. And you get January 6th on an actual national scale in their own streets.
Yeah, but what does it look like afterwards, Holly?
That's what I'm worried about. Because that's the Civil War.
I mean, that's.
I think you do
It's a miracle we got to where we were after the Revolutionary War, let alone the current mindset of people today, the entitlement and
it's amazing.
The lack of I won't say education, but the thought process capability. I think we would not get a free country afterwards.
I think a national divorce. Where you could say, okay, states who want to be in this and states who want to be in this, and I don't know how it looks, but at least if there's no blood spilled, I mean, that to me would the ends justify the means there. Break up the country in order to protect it, to protect the values it was founded on, according to us, and to get the blue states out to where people could still move out of those blue states or move out of those red states if they wanted. But I hate the idea of people storming the streets or a military state getting enacted. A president can easily call for that if there's violence in the streets.
But who would respond to a call from your president to bloody up the civilians?
That's a good question. I think a portion of the FBI, a portion of the military, and I'm saying a minute portion because I think the rest would be protecting our civil liberties and the Constitution. But again, after watching
of that good
military
portion,
take guns out of people's hands and during
how
the
much
training
of that
blew my
good
mind.
how much of that good portion got run out by COVID mandates?
Absolutely.
Anyways, I want you to read this.
China's Ministry of Natural Resources released the new standard national map on Monday, part of what it has called an ongoing effort to eliminate problem maps. In it, China clearly shows its so-called 9-dash line, demarcating what it considers its maritime border, claiming almost the entirety of the South China Sea. Okay, well, I mean, they've always wanted that, right?
Yeah.
The current and other recent iterations of the annual map include a 10th dash to the east of Taiwan.
What's a 10th dash?
Here's the big one.
In the far northeastern corner of China on the border with Russia, it shows Bolshoi,
Good luck.
Uskariski
Island, an island at the confluence of the Amur and Ussuri rivers, as Chinese territory, even though the countries signed an agreement nearly 20 years ago to split the island.
China, in its map, cut off part of Siberia, part of Russia's territory, and claimed it's theirs. Not just the island. They drew a line right up into
What's Russia going
Siberia.
to do about it? Russia needs China more than China needs Russia.
No. China's collapsing as we speak.
I know you say that, but I don't
Yeah.
think Russia's prepared to take on China.
Oh, big news has been coming out of China. Big news has been coming out of China. Now, here's the deal. When
What do you consider collapse in China? I guess I should ask
their
that.
economic system is collapsing.
But not their communist agenda.
I mean, they can just print a different
China's
economy.
technically
I know.
fascist now.
They are fascist, but that's the thing. What is a collapse to China? Okay, their people starve because there's no economy, or
Well, okay.
somebody actually takes down the regime.
You know
of
what the biggest
Communist
collapse
Party.
every nation faces? And we're all facing it right now, except for like 2 countries in Africa, is demographics. Everyone's facing that. People who look at these larger trends argue that Russia's invasion into Ukraine isn't really about the disputes that we argue. It's about Russia's on the hard decline and has been for a while. And that's the last, when countries are on the decline, they always lash out like that. They're like a dying animal, you know, they kick and buck. So that's the argument that China, because of this collapse, is probably more prone to try to take Taiwan, especially after COVID, after we kind of shut down some of their semiconductor availability. Because China doesn't make shit for semiconductors. They make the lowest of the low, the stuff that runs your vacuums.
They
and your
are opening
thermostats.
mines all over Africa.
Sure. Of course they are. And Africa will kick them out in a heartbeat. They've, was it Kenya already kicked them out or somewhere? And China makes good businesses, whatever. And they go over there and offer them a better deal than we do, you know, where we go over to an African country, you
It's
know.
because they can pay slave wages.
It's
true.
It's our ideals.
Compared to ours, yeah.
Compared to us, right?
It's our ideals. We go over to Africa and we tell them, you guys got to honor the transgenders. You've got to do it. You've got to sign on. You've got to hang this rainbow flag on your flagpole. Then China goes over there and says, we'll give you weapons. What do you think Africans want?
Well, absolutely. They're in a civil war constantly anyway.
You mean they don't want rainbow flags?
No. China, but they don't. China,
Okay, the economic miracle I knew was a mirage, as was their...
yeah.
When they
But it's
announced
starting to
what
hit 'em.
their number of populace was and how it came out, they're really not 1 billion people, but they brag that they are.
Yeah.
With the one-child policy, it was not that when it came down to it.
Yeah.
But what you're not thinking about is now that they are in a dearth of women, what they'll do is
they're in a dearth of men.
They killed the women, the babies.
Dearth means
a lack.
A lack of.
Yeah, they're in a lack of women.
So what they'll do is they go to.
On our
we
hands.
both got that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right.
Dearth
it's okay.
rhymes with
whatever.
birth.
Anyway, they're
Girth.
going out to other countries. They're acquiring females of other cultures and countries, which also kind of spreads their culture to those countries and mixes and influences, and it helps them infiltrate those other countries more effectively. Genghis Khan would use a tactic where he gives his daughters out to different warlords.
Sure.
And then those warlords would have
Kings
to fight.
did the same thing with their daughters.
Yeah.
Their princess married the biggest, most profitable
Offspring has
prince.
always been political animals.
Yeah, that made the
right.
best marriage of countries.
And every citizen is the offspring of the fatherland of China. So they're really building their culture in a little bit of a mixing pot when they have to go out and find wives of foreign nature. So it might actually work to their advantage if it pulls off correctly.
Oh my gosh, I didn't see the comments. Thank you, Norma. I was
yeah.
trying to remember what that was called. It's horrible, but I know that in the
Snuff
pornography
films.
industry that they film those, and there are people on the dark web. I don't know if they're real or not. I don't think there's a way to tell if they're real other than if they had a little disclaimer. But that goes with child sex trafficking and all of that. There is sadly, and Americans are the number one connoisseur of this type of pornography. And I think the growth of its access and the easy access is right up there with the reason it's getting worse and worse. And slavery is at an all-time high, highest it's ever been in the history of the world right now.
Yeah. I just worry that if the government writes this law, like the government just tried to do with that internet bill they tried putting out, which would have outlawed the free, it would have built a Chinese-style internet here in the U.S.
It's coming. They'll get it sooner.
I have a feeling the U.S. could shut off the internet if they wanted to.
Well, I know they could, but I don't
Yes,
want a
good.
Chinese style where everything's filtered to what the government wants you to see.
Well, look what Facebook's doing it for them. Twitter
Sure.
was doing it for them.
Sure.
YouTube does it for them.
Sure, and I can voluntarily
It's
not go
all
there.
happening.
When I look for information, I can
Google's
still.
doing it for them. What
Sure.
happens when there's no more ability to a search engine?
So, but right now we're still in a system where another search engine can pop up where that information can break out. But if we write a Chinese style, that system no longer exists.
I don't
Right now,
see
there's
how-
still escape roads, be it as small as they are.
What's the bill they tried to pass?
It's the
The net neutrality.
net neutrality bill.
I remember net neutrality.
No, there was one they were trying to pass right before these trials for the WikiLeaks, not WikiLeaks, for the Twitter files came out. They were trying to pass one.
I'm
And it didn't
hoping
pass,
Elon
thank God.
Musk is the greatest thing that could happen to Twitter and give it free speech, but I still see there's a lot of flagging and there's a lot of, I don't know about censorship. I don't have a lot of followers, or people don't care what I say or think on there. I kind of like that on Twitter, but I mean, I tune into Tucker Carlson and I can't believe, I mean, he's probably making so much money.
Watch this Adam Carolla, Tucker Carlson.
I will.
It's Tucker Carlson being interviewed by Adam Carolla on the Adam Carolla podcast.
Oh, so it's Adam Carolla's show.
Yes.
That's why I haven't seen it. I tune into Tucker.
Oh, you need to tune in. If you're going to tune into one podcast, it should be Adam Carolla.
I like Adam Carolla. I liked it when he was on Bill O'Reilly's show
Yeah.
from time to time. I had no idea he was as conservative as he is.
I don't think he's really ever. I think he's logical. He's not conservative.
No, he's
just
a libertarian. He's about
just-
freedoms.
He's just
over-
logical.
Sadly, that's considered taboo anymore.
Well, logical isn't necessarily
and it's even
freedom,
becoming
though.
it's
No.
even becoming considered taboo amongst a lot of Republican Party, which is why I want to cover this with you right before we let go. What is going on? All of your radical conservatives are going libertarian this go round for this congressional.
So do you think that's a reflection? Do those people vote in this last primary, or do you think the fact that my voter rate is so low that they didn't vote?
I don't know.
Because I only know of one of my very, very dear conservative friends who has told me that he cannot vote for her and he likes this candidate. And my answer is at least vote in the primary. Because I can't deal with a Becky Edwards who could sneak past if we don't at least get her to the primary, and then you vote your conscience to the general. But I was afraid of a Becky Edwards.
I'm not disagreeing.
So that was my advice to him.
Becky Edwards might have been a boon for Brad Green.
Maybe, I don't know.
But
I haven't
I'm just
met
wondering.
Brad. Have you had him on the show?
Yes.
So I'll check that show out.
And he's been on every show. But what do you think has caused? We had him first, though.
People are fed up and tired.
I think so.
And they're tired of the games our party is playing. And
they're tired of the party
making promises,
trying to be an everyman.
Can you tell me what is Brad's opinion of Trump?
I don't think I can.
I don't think he really cares. I don't think he thinks Trump was bad or evil. I think he's probably like I am on Trump, willing to take the good stuff Trump did and be honest about it, and take
Trump
the bad
right
stuff.
now is a victim of a weaponization of a...
I'm sure he does. I'm sure.
I think a lot of people...
The only people who don't are partisan Democrats. That's it.
I think a lot of people, and I try, I was a national delegate for Trump. I proudly voted for Trump. And I'm still completely neutral on who I'm choosing for president. But the more indictments that come across the desk for this man, the more I almost feel like I have to vote for him to put an end to this.
Honestly, they've got me to the point where I might vote for Dan president because of it.
Well, to me, this is
just like
right in your face. We are showing you we are going to stop this man no matter what.
Seriously.
And
that's what it is.
What in the world is wrong with you? They've all got Trump dissolution syndrome, derangement. But see, some of them are in my party, and they're angry at Trump. And yet, I've got a lot to be angry at Trump for. Most of it's his ignorance during COVID and his trust in people like Fauci and not putting a stop to it when it was going on. The second Fauci stabbed him in the back, I'd have fired him.
Now, just so you guys are all aware, when you are attacked with a biological weapon, you don't know the scope or the effect that it's going to have.
I absolutely agree. But when
people were taking precautions after they were bombed by the biological weapon, I can understand.
Here's my concern about the attacked by a biological weapon, because it was a Polish hostage situation.
What's a Polish hostage?
Why are you speaking in codes?
What is a Polish hostage? This is what he wants me to say. What is a Polish hostage?
No, it was suicide. We built the lab. We sent the shit over there.
We studied
We
it.
had to made it.
Funded it.
We did it over there so we could hide it from our government. It was suicide.
Yeah, but we didn't know which one it was.
Our government, Obama's administration funded it.
I promise you, Fauci knew exactly what it was the minute it came out. I promise you, Fauci knew it. Oh, Jesus.
Do you know how many biological weapons we got?
Why do you think that very week? I think
he knew exactly what he was dealing with.
That very week, Fauci shooting emails to all his buddies like, "Oh no, it's not Wuhan. We can't bring up Wuhan. We got to keep this quiet. We got to tell them it was done, at the wet market, and tell them they're racist if they say the virus came from an American-funded lab versus their own food place. That's the racist part."
So, when you said that we don't know what we don't know, and I get that, but here's what I had the problem with. Fauci's advising Trump as the head of the CDC. I'm advising you this and this and this and this. So Trump goes out and says, albeit sometimes he said stupid stuff, but he talked about hydrochloroquine, for example. Then in the very next day, Fauci comes out and actually tries, we're not saying ivermectin or hydrochloroquine. We don't have any studies of that. making a total ass out of the president by design. And he did that on multiple occasions. You don't need a mask. Leave them for the doctors who need them. You don't need a mask. They really don't stop it anyway. 2 weeks later in front of Congress, everybody should be masked.
I think the reason Trump kept him is because when he fired Comey, he got lambasted from all sides.
But sadly, he was right to file Comey, and it's turnaround and quarterback. I get armchair quarterback, but
he would have been right to put Fauci on trial for what he did during AIDS.
I agree. And the problem I have is Trump push the vaccine because the public wanted it.
Well,
but at the same time, like now people are calling him out and be like, hey, if you're president, you're going to call out this vaccine and see what the side effects of it are and all of that.
He pushed the vaccine because he signed to make it happen. He paid to make it happen. That was his big push.
Yeah, absolutely.
And no president wants to say I screwed up. Imagine Bush coming out saying, yeah, Iraq was not a good idea.
But matter of fact, gladly took all the credit for the vaccine. They took all the credit.
Not to mention, Pfizer had the vaccine done in October and held it off until February.
Till the election.
No, they held it till February, till after he was in, and then released it miraculously. Did they run any trials in that 3 months they held it? Oh God, no!
Our people were the animal trials.
Yeah, not were.
Are.
Yes.
And I don't know if you'll get flagged for saying even the word, so I'll say vacuum, but. The people that were affected negatively by the vacuum, I think they have a right to be angry at Trump. Yet the left is all ready to take full credit for that vaccine. Now,
vacuum.
Right, the vacuum. But at the same thoughts that I have about that, I'm fully prepared to get mad at Trump over that.
He
didn't know what he didn't know, and he trusted the wrong people for too long.
I think he was scared at that point. He'd been kind of, his own party betrayed him the whole time.
I never think he was scared.
He'd been ram-handled. I think, maybe not scared is the correct word. I think he was timid at that time. He was timid in the face.
Nobody knew what the hell was happening.
And that's because there's more than one virus in the Wuhan lab.
Oh, yeah.
It could have came out of the blue door, the red door, the yellow door, the orange door.
Most likely funded by us.
You want to hear the best part, though? Did you guys hear the story about the biolab that was found in San Francisco?
Yes. With all those rats.
Biolab.
It was a Chinese biolab with rats and stuff escaping.
China opened up a Wuhan lab.
Wait.
In San Francisco.
What's wrong with having a lab in San Francisco with rats?
No, they were testing biological weapons, basically. Mm-hmm. So all kinds of viruses, including, wasn't it Ebola? And some other things. Bubonic plague.
AIDS.
Wait.
Doing all this in our country.
Without being inspected and certified and
look, they
registered.
got inspected when things escaped from it.
Holy shit.
So I wonder
you never saw
if this got out and went rapid, if China's news would have said, no, they caught it at the fishmonger's market or something.
Right, they found it in the homeless camp of San Francisco.
It was
in a turd, a human turd. Like people in China would think, oh, those dirty Americans. Just like someone says bat soup and we're like, well, Asians eat weird stuff. Ew.
Okay, so China sponsored this is like a basement laboratory.
I don't even think it's a basement. I think it's an actual warehouse.
Well, it's
Look at that thing.
It's a revenge lab.
Look at that. Look at the...
And it also had COVID in there, too.
COVID, blood, feces.
You were probably blocking more than one fire extinguisher with all those.
Well, they're not planning any fires in there.
Jeez.
Just destruction.
Oh.
Anyway, so, okay.
You can't make this shit up.
Wow.
You cannot make this up. We are in the clown world.
Look at this. Medical devices believed to have been developed on site, such as a COVID-19 or pregnancy test. People, if I can tell you anything, I wouldn't do the tests that the government sends you. And I just think we don't test ourselves because if you're sick, stay home. If your child is sick, stay home. If you have a fever, stay home. There's no cure for COVID.
My favorite story of...
The thing is if they test you, the more tests they get, the more noise they can make about this spread and about, oh shoot, we've got to close everything down and stop the spread. And that's the problem. Don't feed it.
My favorite story about, I think it was 2021 that came out, was how the State Department staff in China trying to force the rectal tests on them.
Okay. Was that a temporary temperature test or?
The COVID test rectally.
Yeah, no.
I don't even know if it works.
How many people were injured with the
China
COVID test that literally almost touches your brain? It has to touch that.
That hurt.
You did that one?
Oh my God, I had it like done so many times. I had it done in Brazil, and the girl knew I was American, and I swear to God, she jabbed that sucker in a little extra.
There were people really hurt. One lady got brain damage. Like, it punctured through her white matter or something.
Her white matter.
This is hilarious. So we went and opened up a lab in China.
Can the people see what you're looking at?
No, not right now.
Remember, people are trying to tune in. Poor Patricia. She's probably like,
I'll put it on
husband?
I'll put it on screen. She's watching right now.
She is? Hey, girl.
So the CDC went into this Chinese lab in California, and found 20 infectious agents. Okay, here's the deal. All right, I think I don't know the numbers. This is a moron talking now. To have these infectious stuff in the Wuhan lab, you have to have a level 4 lab, something like that.
Well, those are the categories we use in the United States.
And that lab over there is rated at a level 2. And we authorize them to build these infectious agents over there, right? So China comes over here and builds a level, Boomhauer lab, because there's a picture of the lab right there. It just looks like somebody's garage. And China, it just sounds like it sounds to me like China just said, here's how we get revenge.
I'm trying to see what the diseases they found were.
Okay, we'll go back up.
Because I remember...
I'm surprised I haven't heard about this. Here's insane.
A few.
HIV, COVID, chlamydia, rubella, malaria, things of that nature. I remember them saying Ebola, and I do remember them saying...
20 potentially infectious agents.
And what's sad is these were... that rats had gotten out, or mice, and that's what attracted them initially to the lab. So these things are scurrying around.
Ebola. If it was Ebola, that would have gotten out. There's no way.
I think they said Ebola was one of their
If
things.
it was Ebola, that
but the thing is it didn't get anybody. I guess they caught it in time. But, I mean, just look at the homeless population. These mice get around and bite one of those people.
Oh, it's insane.
And this is on our soil. How is this not like...
How is this not a major news story?
It was.
This is USA Today, but I heard it from like a podcast.
And this is like 2 months ago.
Blowing it up about this.
So, yeah, everyone's all worried about what Trump's going to say, but this looks a lot more concerning to me.
You think? Yeah. Well, my question is, what business did they file under when they first came into the country? And is this business part of the communist China regime? Because wouldn't that be an act of war?
If I remember, it started out as a Canadian business and then was sold to a Chinese business. If I remember, it was a legitimate business at one time, and then it became.
To me, it's just really creepy. Oh, did you guys see the deal with the safes?
The deal with the safes.
One of the guys from from January 6th, they served a warrant on his house, and his Liberty safe was in the house. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have a warrant to search it. At least it wasn't. It just said search for. They were looking for certain things. So the FBI calls Liberty Safe, and Liberty Safe turns over his code without a warrant. Liberty Safe is supposed to be one of the best built safes in it forever. And Talk Radio has advertised them like crazy.
Not just the best run company, but a good safe.
Apparently, the company sold to a left group, a group that leans left and donates to, I don't know, people like Fetterman in Pennsylvania.
So no more Liberty Safe.
And they still use the name and the banner, and they still advertise on conservative sites as Liberty Safe. They kept their name, but they had to put out a press release saying, well, our agreement is that if someone has a warrant, and so someone called him out. Oh, it was James O'Keefe. No, it wasn't O'Keefe. It's the guy from
Veritas?
No, it's not him. Charlie Kirk.
Okay.
Charlie Kirk calls him out and is like, hey, Liberty's safe, because he's one of the people that advertised for them, I'm sure.
Oh, I just shut that advertisement down.
Did they have a warrant? Well, they didn't produce one, but our goal is to follow. And so it's like conservatives are pulling all their advertising.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah, I'd pull it. I'd yank it slicker than crap.
But I'm thinking, a warrant that says you can search a person's premise, I think includes a safe, wouldn't it?
Well, it depends on what they're looking for. It has to be declared items.
Right. So I'm not sure what side
warrants
I
are
fall
supposed
on,
to declare exactly where you can search.
Right. You're looking for a piece of paper, so you can only.
Yeah. Well, not just
that opens up the whole house. But if you're looking for a big gun, it would eliminate certain places you would check.
Yeah, most of them declare where in the house you can search. Also,
this one might have been that. But Liberty Safe didn't require the warrant to give up that code.
They didn't say, hey, shoot us a photocopy.
That's got people livid because...
Oh, yeah. I'd ditch them.
A lot of conservative, a lot of gun owners believe in that brand. And so, one talk show host I listened to was like, Bud Light their asses.
Yeah, maybe Dylan can get some advertising with them.
That's just my final message. And this goes out to all you. I don't care if you're Democrat, progressive, libertarian, Republican. If there's a company that's not following through, okay, I'm going to say it right now. Ford dealerships have been pretty shady across the board the last 4 years, right?
How so?
Just with their markups. Ford is even now playing a game, a lot of dealerships here in Utah, playing a game where they take brand new cars that have 10 miles on them from the test drives and mark them as used so they can do markups, because Ford finally caught on, Ford the corporation, and shut down
lots of companies do that.
Shut down their ability to mark up so much. So now they mark them as used so they can mark them up again.
They're called gently used, and it takes a lot of money off the original price for the owner, but
it didn't on this Maverick that I watched.
The back end, the dealership makes more because it's a used car.
Yeah, but yeah. So
I've bought 2 cars that way.
So
with less than 5,000 miles on them.
I will not. But these have 10 miles. These are vehicles that's never been sold at all. They've been test drove.
If you wanted to be really picky about that, you could walk in and say, I was just test drove this one. I want this one. Okay, it's a brand new car. And you say, no, it isn't. There's 15 miles on it. Get me a brand new one. If I'm going to pay brand new prices, so I could see a
they're
customer doing that.
They're doing this, so they're marking up the Maverick more than what the MSRP is, because Ford has restricted dealerships to MSRP, so they're calling them used so they can finally mark them up. So
what's their supply and demand like?
So
they've been kind of out of supply for a long time.
They're packed with pickups.
They can't move them.
They can't move them. So you're not going to see me driving a Ford anytime soon.
Were you going to run out and buy one and this crushed your dreams?
No, probably not.
I like Ford, but I like the Raptor. But I still know I
like the theory of the Raptor. I don't want a twin turboed pickup truck.
It's cute though.
Sure. I don't want a twin turbo pickup truck. I don't want a tiny V6 that 5,000 miles. I've got to dump $7,000 into it to buy new turbos.
You pay for the
Nobody's making you buy a Ford, Jared.
I want a naturally aspirated V8.
You can do that. I say buy Nissan.
Actually, if I was to, I'd say
Ken Garff Nissan downtown is an excellent place for all your vehicle needs.
Right now, Nissan makes the best pickup truck, best half ton out there. Once you get into
Mention
3/4
my name
ton,
and you will get a great deal.
But anyways, but no, it's just so I'm just, the point is to circle back to that, like that lady did, that red-haired lady that used to speak for Biden. You've got to start voting with your dollar. So if there's something that you don't like, a business practice, you don't like something they do, you just say, okay, I'm going to seek out an alternative.
That's what happened with Bud Light.
We have a dearth Dearth? Is that the correct
Dearth?
word?
Yeah.
No.
You mean a surplus or a dearth?
A plethora.
Plethora. There you
There
go.
we go. We're digging into
Dearth.
words.
I thought you were actually.
Where'd all
using
this
the vocab
advanced
right.
diction come from?
I need a thesaurus.
A stegosaurus?
There is so many different companies, so many different availabilities that you're able to shop around and find substitutes for almost everything you do.
Can I mention something on that note? That goes for your kids at school too. Schools are paid per attendees.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're done with what the school is doing, if your school's mandating masks, if your school's teaching something you don't like, if your kid can't have a certain patch on his backpack but a
Gadsden
trans flag
flag
in his room, then the more people that go, you know what, we're done, and they pull their kids out,
Yep.
only that is going to tell districts, whoa, we got to do something.
That's true, and we need to start doing that. I was hoping, I had a dream, like Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. I had a dream that we would start seeing pod schools pop up and they would be sustainable. And the problem is, as soon as
Like
schools,
little schoolhouses.
yeah, something like that,
Essentially, we have a homeschooling.
private homeschooling
like,
systems.
We have a
but
community here that's incredible.
after we do, and we've got, and I think it'd be great. Imagine if you're a decent elementary school teacher. You could make so much more if you said, I'm going to step into this private market. I'm going to step away from the UEA. I'm going to step away from the school district, and I'm going to do it in this private market and
call it a homeschooling.
Just a pod
school.
teacher, where Mondays I'm at pod A that meets at this house. Tuesdays I'm at pod B at
I
that
could
house.
see that being excellent.
And
they're doing it now in our community.
We just don't, not
Our
enough.
tax dollars don't go there, though.
Now they just awarded some to homeschooling.
Yeah, homeschooling
groups,
you get like,
but you're right,
$5,000.
not like what it'd be if you were going to
But imagine
a private school or something.
Imagine if you were, if say they get $5,000. So you went to the parents, you say, I provide everything, and you get 30 parents to sign off with you.
And you're just one class or one day. Let's say the other day your kids are learning how to sharpshoot or shoot a bow and arrow.
Well,
or
not just that,
their
you
sports
have
day doing something besides football or baseball.
Yeah.
They're learning hunting skills or survival skills.
Science or math. You want me to tell you, I got depressed today. So the girlfriend's kid got his first job. Good on him. And you know what they don't teach in school now that I just learned today? So I've been teaching
Cursive?
how to count change.
Oh, I just talked to my kids about that. I've been teaching them how to count change back. Yeah, it's a dying thing.
How to count change. That should be, I don't care. I don't care how into the digital universe we go with this. Let's at least keep that alive.
So how to count dollars and change, or how to count it back to someone when they're giving change?
I don't care how to count. How
All of
74 cents in coins.
And I'm teaching my kids how to give. They give $7.40, and they give you a $10 bill.
Sure.
Here's how you count it back.
How do you go through life and not know how to count change?
You have a credit card your whole life.
Yeah, they don't.
Raised in
They
a
used to
debit
teach it in school.
card. That was
Wow.
math in first grade.
Yeah. Remember we had booklets and it had
You had the
pennies
coins
and
and
quarters.
you cut them out.
Yeah, and then
pretend store.
the new ones now that are way cool is they had the plastic one, or the new ones that came up when my kid was in school. They had the plastic ones, they'd get this little, look like a little bag with plastic coins and paper dollars
Like Monopoly
in it.
money. And that's the thing, like then you did a little school store where you could buy things with your money.
And the teacher'd go through a class. Okay, everyone, we're going to make, 85 cents. Here's what we're doing it
I
with.
was 17 when my dad set me down and showed me how to give change back. Like I say, $7.40, and then you give them a dime. There's $7.50, and then 2 quarters. There's 8, 9, 10. And
I had a grandpa who
I
went
didn't
to
know
the
how to
swap
do that
meet
when
all
I
the
was 17.
time.
I thought my dad was just crazy because I just did the math in my head.
Yeah.
He's like, stop doing that. You waste too much time. Just count it back to them.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it's the right change as he's walking away.
But yeah, so that's the leaving note. Teach your kids how to count change.
Teach them how to respect money and cash, and teach them why they're young that saving is so utterly important. Because the government's not going to be there for you, and you need to have a rainy day fund at all ages.
What was the last numbers that came out? Social Security 2033? Is that what they said?
How old will we be? We won't even be old enough.
2033? No, it's done. It's bankrupt then, on its current trajectory.
We'll just print more.
Yeah, that's it. No one's worried. And if Republicans even bring up
I don't know.
it,
maybe a new COVID virus will come out and we'll have Governor Comey Jr. or not Comey. What was that New York's name? Come on, who's your governor?
Como?
Yeah, Comover and Whitmer, and they'll just put us. Put the sick people in the old folks' home with us. That's Social Security.
Why has he
saving.
not been on trial for that yet?
Oh, really?
Why has Fauci not been on trial for that?
Do go on.
I mean, this is so annoying to me.
Well,
at least somebody like Trump can go, I didn't know what I didn't know. I went to the experts.
We're too busy with January 6th right now.
That's insane to me.
Someone smoked a
The
cigar in
worst
Nancy Pelosi's
attempt
office.
at an insurrection you've ever seen in the history of the world. An unarmed insurrection. Unarmed.
Will the next one be that way?
We went through a summer of murder, fires, riots, violence. A summer. Did the FBI do half the searching for people who killed people?
Did the FBI search at all?
Did they
See,
pre-search? I mean,
I'm
everyone was labeled before they even went to the rally.
Absolutely.
And they figured out where they're going to pick them up afterwards. And you know what? I wonder if there was any instigation there. I wonder, because I heard they were peppering the crowd with
Agents.
paintball devices
Called
while
pepperball.
they were singing the national anthem. And I wonder if little things like that build up a reaction in people.
Well, plus you could have federal agents in there inciting it too. And keeping their anonymity because they have to. But here's my thing. I'm prepared as a Republican to say that the American people that went to the Capitol should never have broke a thing. And they should have never hurt anybody. And they should have followed police commands. But I say that knowing many police let them in, which doesn't get mentioned. And then for them to say it's the worst thing since 9/11, since the Civil War.
Since Pearl Harbor. It's the worst.
Pearl
it's the
Harbor.
worst thing since Eve ate an apple.
And they're trying to say Trump totally instigated it and take his words out of context because they were planning. They had to have a permit to even protest. And they did that. The Trump rally, they all had a permit, and the permit ended at the Capitol. So when Trump said, I know you're all heading to the Capitol next, or you're going to march on to the Capitol, all of that was out of context. They made it look like he was inciting a riot. When, if you're going to talk about mostly peaceful protest and what you saw in those films, whereas in CNN in their Summer of Love, mostly peaceful protests as a car is burning behind him and businesses. And what else? They all got to cover their faces.
I like that one. My favorite video. I think they were in California somewhere. I keep going back, but the guy's he's out there. He's got his mask on. He's interviewing. How come you're not wearing a mask, sir? And he's like, I don't want to wear a mask. Why isn't your cameraman wearing one? He's like, oh, well, I'll shut up now.
Pretty much.
That was great.
It's so much enormous that it's a smokescreen. They're so busy dangling over here what you need to hate, what you need to worry about, what the big problems in this country are, while over here they're wrecking your liberties. They are plotting. They are, and I say they very fairly. I'm just as ready to criticize the Republican Party as I am the Democrat Party.
We're being fleeced. They are stealing.
It's wag the dog.
They are stealing the silverware as the Titanic sinks. They are.
To what end?
They are.
They have to go down with the ship.
No, they don't.
They can't rise above it.
No, they don't.
How do you take on the majority in this country when they've had enough?
When you stole all their money, you buy a chateau in France. You leave.
Well, I guess I just don't know.
You do what Kurt Cameron did, and you buy the
Kurt Cobain?
Kurt Cameron. Or is it Kurt Cameron, the guy
Cameron's
who the movie
religious
maker?
guy.
Who's the movie maker guy? Made Jurassic Park.
Oh,
Okay, that guy.
Michael Crichton. No, that's the guy who wrote
He's
it.
the guy who wrote it. You buy
James Cameron.
Yeah, James Cameron.
He made Terminator and Titanic.
Yeah, you buy a house on that freaking commie island next to Australia, New Zealand. You leave, and that's what they're doing. I promise you. I promise you
What
right
does
now.
America look like when they
I
leave?
promise you,
A third world country?
they don't care. They're rich when they leave.
They're making Ukrainians extremely
They're
rich.
still no. I promise you.
Politicians in Ukraine
I
are
promise
extremely
you.
rich.
I promise you that money's funneling right back to them. I promise you right now.
You're right.
The Bidens have property elsewhere.
Well, let's go down the list. The Bidens, the Romneys.
I promise you. Yeah, the Romneys.
The Pelosi's.
Where would you go, Jared, if you were one of these lizard people?
And New Zealand has
getting
a
ready?
gun ban.
God, where would I go? I know that's a tough one.
Do you think they're
I
in
mean-
bed with China?
I would have to.
New Zealand?
No, the elites that are
Yeah.
destroying our country.
I don't know. Where would I go? I would have to go somewhere that. I mean, I could go to Liberland. No one else lives there. Just live there by myself. Do people live there?
Yep, they do now.
Okay, maybe I'd go there. Somewhere in Africa, maybe.
No, you're safe. You're not safe in Africa, though. I mean, right now they're calling civil war on white farmers. Anybody
In
with
South
money.
Africa.
Where are you going to move to the Congo? There's children in military, like at the age of 12.
Hell yeah.
Civil war.
I'll go there and become a general. Be general butt
Well,
naked.
that money would buy you power. I love Mexico.
They'd eat you alive,
But-
boy.
Mexico, you have no
You'd be overrun
property
by
rights.
Drug cartels and
Now, if you're just going to rent, Mexico's probably an ideal place to go.
I wouldn't leave the United States, but I also wouldn't leave the United States in shambles either. So
Dude, I don't think they care.
Unless you're in bed with the Chinese government.
It's not about being in
Even
bed
then,
with the
how do
Chinese
how
government.
do you win?
It's
You don't.
You don't
You
look
pick,
at
you pick a winner.
don't look at about
You
it.
don't win.
Don't look at it as being in bed with a certain government. Looking at it, you got to look at it as they're thieves. It's not about who you're in bed with. It's about how can you fleece the most money. How can you make the most money?
I think the
They don't
Clintons
care.
got that down.
They don't care. Shit, I don't
their
know if
foundation-
I don't know if the Clintons hold a candle.
Yeah, we don't know the extent of Biden right now.
I'm thinking Biden's been in the shadows the whole time playing some shit.
I think his chair of vice presidency, though, was a huge opener for him.
I think Pelosi went to bed at night jealous of the Biden regime. I think Bill and Hillary went to bed at night jealous of the Biden regime. Biden
Maybe.
got in as vice president.
Yeah, but he won with a no-name senator that came out of nowhere.
And ran everything that went to Iraq. Everything that touched Iraq.
And China and Ukraine.
Well, I'm just talking the Iraq thing. The thing that Cheney caught all the flack for, which he was shady as hell in that with Halliburton. But Biden, when he got in there, everything went to his brother. And do you think Biden didn't get a big cut
Oh,
of
no,
that?
he's the big man. He gets 50%. Like, that's what the emails say.
I think 50%.
50% goes to the big man.
50% if you're on his good side that week.
To me, it's just the fact that America is not
I
just
think
freaking out
we are
over
being-
half of the news you're hearing.
We are being stripped. And he's going, half the senators and congressmen he's going to and saying, poor Ukrainians, and their heart bleeds for him, and they sign on to it. And the other half he goes, how much?
He just gave another $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Billion.
How much?
That's 1,000
how
million.
much cut back to him? So
I-
that's where we're at. We are being stripped. But anyways,
Celeste Malloy did say that she would not vote for another dime going to Ukraine until a full audit was done on the accountability was made on the money and where it's been spent thus far.
Good.
So I think Twilla County can feel good knowing that the person we voted, even though, I mean, she only
It's
gets to
not
work
gonna
a
stop
month
a thing, 'cause-
before she has to turn around and file again. But I know she's going to work the whole time.
because what's going to happen, this last batch that he sent over, he signed off with a Maui aid package, right? No, so all he's got to do is look around the country and
So how
find,
much went to Maui?
I don't know, 18 cents or some
How
shit.
much has gone to Palestine, East Palestine,
Oh, shit.
in their disaster?
I don't think they've gotten anything. Hell, he hadn't stopped by yet. He might have flown over
These
the
are
state.
American cities.
Potato.
In total, utter destruction. And he writes
The
$1
peasant.
billion check to Ukraine.
But
after
anyways,
hundreds of billions.
He signed that on through a Maui relief package, right? We're talking 1,000 people missing, and he
Kids.
signs that onto it. So, anyways, so he'll just look around and find the next disaster, and then
Funnel
just
more money in that
sign it onto that, or God forbid. Maybe a disaster happens
creates
to
one.
appear. It'd be a damn shame if your forest here burnt down,
It is Wag the Dog.
or it'd be a damn
Have you
shame.
seen that movie? Mm-hmm. Where basically the media can tell you whatever you think you're seeing, and it's all. I've never felt more like I look at things and go, oh geez. It's like you see through it now to a point where you're going, okay. I mean, when this Ukraine stuff started, everyone started putting the Ukraine flags on, and I kept thinking, why are we all of a sudden so big on protecting Ukraine when Obama was president? He sent them blankets. He's like, good luck with that. Here's some blankets. Thankfully, they weren't loaded with smallpox. Like he couldn't care less about Ukraine. Obama.
Well, don't you think it's kind of shady that he put the $1 billion on for Ukraine on a Maui aid package? He did that.
It's so shady.
And nobody's really pointing that's the first time I learned that. And if that is the fact, this is very criminal.
How many citizens of Hawaii, especially Maui, will still be voting Democrat in the next election?
But then
Because there is so much that is not being covered and not being told, and these people are there in the front line. There's 1,000 people unaccounted for, and most of them are children. And it wasn't even on Fox's front page, CNN's front page today when I looked at their websites. Like, it's gone. This is out of the news cycle. And yet, just like East Palestine, people are still suffering.
Nothing ceases to amaze me anymore, to be honest with you. But we have been here for a full stack of 3
There it
hours.
is, right there.
We've informed the public quite a bit.
Announces the aid package for Ukraine. Or no, news about Biden puts Ukraine money on the Maui package.
The audience can't see the searches.
Yeah, no, I didn't put the search.
Dang.
I spelled. Did I spell that right?
Maui.
There we go. I don't know how to spell, folks. Where's it at? I remember it was a big
Probably
argument.
in that 375 million. Oh no, that's May. Here's 8 hours ago. So it's probably in that.
Right here?
Yeah. Unless it's the next one down. But 600 million.
I think that aid package got shut down, but he pushed it.
Oh. And then he pledged $1 billion in the new military humanitarian aid. So when the Secretary of State shows up there, he's writing a check when he gets there. This is all smokescreen, and it's an absolute joke to me. I can't believe that people are not so pissed. And they're saying, well, we've got to keep them there and we've got to take on Russia and all this other stuff. Why now? Why now?
People won't be able to react to it until they're hungry. Once they get hungry.
Look, you were talking about earlier. The ladies with their paint clothes.
So where you just were, there it is. News. Can you click on that? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's just... Biden administration tells Congress it needs another $16 billion.
Where was it at?
FEMA needs more money to respond to the natural disasters.
Yeah.
Call them natural disasters, and then they call it climate change and the same thing. And it's like...
Natural climate change?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure burying trees will sort it all out.
$700 payments to the Miami or to the Maui victims. I mean, even COVID, you got more than that.
Well, if they continue to vote Democrat, they do deserve everything they're getting. I mean, you can only save so many dodo birds walking off the cliff before your arms get tired.
Every major blue city in this country right now is facing high crime, low budgets, high taxes, low housing availability, low jobs. I mean, look how fast stores are moving out of cities because they're getting organized crime is attacking them. And I say organized, it may be 50 people all stealing $1,000 so they don't get arrested for a felony shoplift. But it takes 50 of them and they're organized. And this is happening and driving stores to close, to cities to lose jobs. People are afraid to go to work. And it's like, why? This is happening in Texas, in Austin. These blue cities, Detroit, I mean, even Houston, but Oregon, Portland, San Francisco, it's...
I like that San Francisco has a internet map where you can go and look where to avoid walking through poo.
Yeah,
people poo.
Human feces. I mean, somebody's going to capitalize on it, right? Capitalism, but...
Dude, it always wins.
I honestly am so stunned by the fact that these blue cities are tolerating this. And a lot aren't. Look how many moved out of California and moved into Texas, into Utah. But if they vote the same way when they get here or they get to Texas...
They're giving us Becky Edwards.
Well, they deserve who they get, like you said. But you get a place like California, one of the most beautiful states in the Union, one of the most highly productive economies, and one of the most sought after places. It was like dream. You really made it if you could live in a perfect climate like San Diego and live in the Hollywood Hills or whatever. Now it's a dumpster fire with never any construction.
Without a dumpster.
Horrific homelessness. They've outpriced every one of their legal immigrants. They've outpriced them in homes. There's no place to give them mental health. And it's tax after tax after tax.
Regulation.
I mean, they're trying to tax people who are leaving.
Yeah, they want to tax you for, what is it? You have to pay state taxes to California for 10 years.
10 years.
Wow.
They're reintroducing mask mandates in California.
That's comical.
They are turning into a third world country. Do you see the judge that just said that the Texas has to remove the buoys out of the river? They had
they put those rollers in there.
A judge just said you have to take them out. And
I've been saying it for a while.
Well, he finally made the ruling, and Abbott said no. We appeal. We're going to a
I'd say no. I have Fort Hood.
I guess the judge is a Reagan appointee, so I'm thinking he's been around a long time.
Don't care.
But I'm sorry. Get back to the states' rights. States should be able to decide how they protect their borders.
Yep. Yeah,
I think that
DeSantis
DeSantis gets the biggest thumbs up, though. Sending immigrants to Martha's Vineyard.
Abbott did it too.
They're sending him to New York.
Abbott's the one who sent him to New York, and New York's and Chicago, and they're both in riots over.
Do you know that New York just said they're going to lower the vaccine requirement for these immigrants? Not for the citizens of New York, but for these immigrants.
Well, of course.
We're not going to.
Well, remember when
they be bringing with them?
Remember when there was that travel ban unless you were vaxxed with the United States?
To come into the United States.
Unless.
Do you know that my family from Germany just flew in? They were here for a couple of weeks. This is crazy. When they bought their ticket in the United States, they had to each pay $50 an application to enter the United States, separate, that they were turned in at customs. They couldn't fly if they didn't do it. And it asked them for all their information, like everything. How long do you plan to stay here? It was like a visa application, and it was required, even though they were only staying 3 weeks in the States. That's $50 off of every immigrant that's not coming in to live. They're coming to visit. And where is that going? We're going
to have to do the same thing shortly to go to Europe. They're going to do a.
I won't blame them. We're gouging their people. And yet we make money off those tourism dollars and they go home.
Don't worry. I'm sure the next disease they release will work, and then they won't have to worry about us anymore.
It's a terrible thought. And it's also a terrible thought.
I mean,
If
Bill
this
Gates
was
is
really
trying to
planned,
make the super mosquito.
if this was really by design to be a bioweapon, and they didn't know how terrible it'd be or how many people it would kill, if that was really, I mean, I know that's the conspiracy people have. What on earth was supposed to kill you? Was it the virus? Was it the vaccine? The vacuum?
The crazy thing is that most people think that the virus was the vector for them to get the vaccine into you.
And that's what I've heard. And what scares me is what happens when they have something they really know will work.
Yeah, you know.
We need to defund these bureaucrats. That's my...
How?
I think that the next president gets in there. He has to have a House. He has to have the Senate. But you start shutting the Department of Education down.
How are you going to have the
Closed.
House and the Senate without the party?
How do you defund something that can just print its own money?
You have to shut it down. You close the department. Sorry, there's no more Department of
The
Education.
last time we shut down the central bank was under...
I wasn't talking about the bank. I was just talking about like
Well, that's the last time we had a shakeup, a real shakeup.
EPA needs to go.
The guy's name was Andrew Jackson.
Oh, I thought it was.
Just
what's
Drink
his face?
that in.
That's a long time ago.
That is a very long time ago.
It's like the beginning of the country.
The very beginning of the country.
Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the country.
Yeah. It's our 7th president.
That's pretty close.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, we haven't hit double digits at that point.
what's his name? He shut down a lot of budget-wise. He shut down a lot of unnecessary spending.
Who?
The president that I love, that I just spaced.
Coolidge?
Calvin Coolidge.
Yes. No, Coolidge did more than that. He wouldn't get involved in shit. And we followed him up with a little guy named Hoover.
But what I'm saying,
Another
it can
Republican,
be done,
a
but you have
progressive-
to shut these departments down. You
Well-
don't defund, you shut them down, and I think you audit, shut them down, and decide what's worth keeping, what isn't. Financially, it's going to be easier to shut down departments than it is to cut off handouts. Because once people start getting stuff for their side, they're not so quick to let it go.
There is a downside.
Unemployment across the United States
Of-
because our federal government is such a huge employer.
When Thomas Jefferson paid off the national debt, it sent the country into a huge depression. Huge depression.
How big was the national debt under Jefferson?
I don't know, 75 cents back then, but $4,500, you know. No one had ever seen that much money.
Oh my pearls! Clutch my pearls.
But it did. It sent it, and every time they've done Andrew Jackson, when he did, it's real interesting. If you want to read that story, I would suggest looking it up. When he shut down the banks worked to send us into a depression, but it backfired on him because Andrew Jackson didn't hold shit back and didn't hide anything, and he also had a Congress and a Senate that helped him out with it, and a judiciary. So the banks all knew about it, and a lot of those banksters were damn near tarred and feathered.
Well, I don't think Andrew Jackson has the greatest record, though. A lot of people have some disappointments in him.
Sure,
I don't know.
sure. Even though it was what was it, Buchanan, who actually did the Trail of Tears. But it was Andrew Jackson that opened the door for it.
Yeah.
Don't scratch on that anymore. We can hear that loud and clear.
I can't hear anything.
I know. I don't know why your headphones aren't working.
I'm probably not even. No one can hear me through this whole thing. Probably.
No,
Well-
we hear you.
Let's see.
I think.
But it is 3 hours, 13 minutes
Yeah.
into the show. The happy hour
Dave's
has
got to go
ended.
home. All right.
I
Everyone-
really appreciate you guys waiting up for me. Sorry
Yeah.
about my tardiness and sorry, Patricia.
You had
Yeah.
to do what you had to
Do
do.
one last thing, Norma.
Party
Thanks. You're right. Norma says Democrats paid for it to make Republicans look bad, especially Trump.
I think that she means for January 6th. I think it's more than Democrats. I think
it's a bureaucracy.
Was led by the bureaucracy.
Have you guys ever heard of COINTELPRO?
Absolutely right.
Yes, I have.
I mean, for Pelosi to have a documentary happening while that's happening,
I know.
For Trump to request the
Have you ever heard of
National
COINTELPRO?
Guard and to get denied, hold on, but then if he's a bastard for asking for the National Guard for DC during what could be millions of people coming to DC, but then what's the governor of California asked for National Guard?
Newsom?
Yeah, and he's a hero.
Yeah.
It's like,
Have you
It's all
ever
how you spin it.
Have you heard of COINTELPRO?
no,
Should look it up.
I don't come here to get homework. You've just
Oh,
had
it's an
me.
interesting story. It is super fun.
We have to
Everyone,
go.
have a good one.
Good night, friends.